Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my partner in crime, my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
Ryan, how appropriate that we are beginning our Terrence Malick series after Tony Scott, because in True Romance, Hans Zimmer absolutely ripped off the score from Terrence Malick's first film, Badlands,
Correct.
which we will be discussing today.
That is
and
correct.
That's really what we're going to be talking about for most of the conversation, I believe, right?
Are we... Wait, we're going to talk about True Romance and just how it rips off this movie? Is that what you're
Yeah, I think
that'll
be like 80% of the conversation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure anybody...
What else is there to talk about with Badlands?
I'm pretty sure every fan of Badlands will literally be mad at us if we did that the entire time of this podcast.
It's Malick time, Ryan. I can't believe it. It's here.
Yeah, it's kind of wild because we were just doing Tony Scott, and it was the summer of Tony, and everybody was having a good time. And now it's back to big boy movie watching. I think it's some serious movie watching that we're going to do over the next.
Tony short there, but
I mean, he does give off like a hey, let's have a good time during the summer, and then Terrence Malick is you better get your shit together because we're talking about some cinema. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Bust
I don't know.
out your Kierkegaard. We're talking Malick. All right.
Yeah, I mean, Jay, I got to ask you up front before we get to our guest here.
Yeah.
How nervous are you about this series?
Oh my God. So Ryan, just to talk about kind of my preparation for this series, I'll say it up front. Terrence Malick is my favorite director of all time. So this is very important to me. I have purchased 6 books about Terrence Malick to one degree or another.
Overcompensating.
So far, I've busted out 4 of them, which I think is pretty good. And
have you read them all?
Well, I'm at 4, and one of them is specifically about the Tree of Life. So obviously haven't gotten to that one yet, and it's hard to balance all these books at one time. And
do you have to take notes? Yeah,
I've got a whole Google Doc with notes. I'm staring at it right now.
How much time have you spent reading these books? Just oppose that to like how much time have you not spent with like the family and the wife and the kids?
Yeah. My son is malnourished. It's a problem. I mean, Malick is taking over this household in ways that I never could have imagined. And here we are. I was, Ryan, we've been talking about this series and my kind of temperament throughout it. I was worried that I was going to be super self-serious and very kind of honed in on the themes and stuff. I think I'm off to a good start. Still being silly, which is what we need. But we'll start talking about these, and there will be times where I will be obnoxious. This is important to me. This has to be my magnum opus. So here we are. We're here.
So what you're saying is then that provides me to be the balance to all that self-seriousness and be the goofball that I've always wanted to be.
Yeah, there is the ultimate, and we're going to talk about the ultimate balance with the films of Terrence Malick, of course. And here we are. I don't even know what to say. I'm excited. I love Terrence Malick. He's a cool guy.
Yeah,
who we know so much about.
We know so much about. He's been sitting down with interviews all the time.
Yeah,
he's an open book. Literally,
he's dating one of the Kardashians right now. Is that right?
Yeah, it is a little weird. He did like a Super Bowl commercial a couple of years ago for crypto. That was weird.
Big crypto guy.
Big crypto guy. It's in the dirt. That's where all the money's at.
He's gotten really in the inner circle of like the Paul brothers, right? Jake Paul and Logan Paul.
Yeah, he's actually. What's crazy about Terry M is his actual WWE name. Is that he's going to transition over to boxing. It's weird.
Seriously?
He's fighting.
I haven't even heard that. Wow,
yeah,
I've been doing a lot of research. Haven't even seen that.
I know that there's supposed to be that Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, but he's actually Terrence Malick's going to fight Floyd Mayweather next year. It's going to be pretty big.
This is off to a great start.
Well, yes, we're here to talk about Badlands. We're here to talk about Terrence Malick. We're here to break down his entire filmography. We're going to do every film. Haven't done one of those in a while. Well, I guess we did that with Sophia. But now, our guest today, we got guests on most of these episodes, but our guest today is a regular contributor over at AwardsWatch with us. You last heard him on our episode about Licorice Pizza in the Paul Thomas Anderson series, and ending that series, which is kind of fitting, actually, that Dan Bayer is with us today, because everybody knows Paul Thomas Anderson's my favorite director, and Dan ended that series. So it's only right to come on for Jay's favorite director at the beginning of a new series. So Dan Bayer, welcome back to Director Watch.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for having me.
That was the longest intro we've ever done for a guest, probably, in a long time.
Oh, yeah, the longest one until we actually said that there was a person here. Yeah, normally you're like, and we couldn't do this by ourselves.
That's true. But I did say before we get to our guest. So maybe you should pay attention.
Well, that was the ultimate.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you didn't introduce the guest.
Yeah, but there was a guest that was going to be introduced soon, and you're acting like there wasn't going to be a guest at all. And listening skills on this episode, ladies and gentlemen, have not been starting out very strong.
Jesus. As Terrence Malick would say, Jesus.
Oh my God. Dan,
No, he would not call him by that. He would say, Lord.
Yeah. Lord.
Father.
Yes. Father. Mother.
Father. Mother.
Oh, as you wrestle inside me.
Earth.
Oh, as you wheel.
And the sun. And the sun on my face. Yeah, there would be a lot of that. Yeah. Jay's like, you guys shut the hell up right now.
Yeah, quit being silly.
Yeah, we can't be silly on this show because, as
Talking
Dan
about
knows,
Terrence Malick,
we've never been silly ever on Director Watch. We're like 60 episodes.
Terrence Malick would love this podcast.
He would walk the fuck out of this show. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. We'd be like, well, I guess I'm not listening to that anymore. Do you guys have a Terrence Malick impression? What do you think? How does he sound?
I mean, we know how he sounds because he's literally has dialogue in this movie.
Yes, but it changes but people's voices change over time. Dan.
That's fair. That's fair.
You know, it's been what? When did this movie come out again?
73.
73, so it's like 50 years. Yeah. So
he probably sounds exactly the same. He's 80 now.
Probably, yeah.
That's true. That's true. Is he ever, by the way, before we even get into the series, Jay, is he ever going to make this damn movie? Is he ever going to release the one that he's filming right now, the Jesus movie?
Well,
yes.
It's
with Mark Rylance, right?
He seems to be going back to kind of his old way of working very slowly and very slowly finding a film in the edit.
It's so crazy because...
And I'm excited about it.
Me too.
Well, it's so crazy because it's like obviously, we're going to...
Mark Rylance probably isn't even going to end up in the movie.
Yeah. He's going to show up to the fucking premiere and be like...
He'll be a background character.
Yeah.
You kicked out the BFG? What the fuck?
We love BFG.
Oh my God. One of the worst movies of the last 15 years is the BFG.
Am I one of the... What do you guys think of
Spielberg.
Rylance's Oscar win?
I'm not a fan of... I
think it's deserved. I was very pro.
I am thoroughly biased in favor of Mark Rylance winning every award he is ever up for, so I'm pro.
I'm one of those people, guys.
I was all about that performance.
I'm
wanted
sorry.
Stallone.
I wanted Stallone bad. There's something about that performance in Creed. Like, listen, I know Stallone's been a difficult person to deal with, and I know that he's been playing Rocky for like 50 years too. But like, for God's sakes, like, Creed is a kind of a miracle of a blockbuster.
No, Creed,
and
Creed
that
rocks.
should not be good.
But you know what? It's not Bridge of Spies.
It's better than Bridge of Spies.
No, it is not.
It is. I'm sorry.
It is not.
And
I think that's very racist of you, Jay.
Yeah,
Bridge of Spies absolutely rocks the house.
I think
that seems very pro-Russia of you, Jay.
Yeah, Jay,
you know what this is? It's very dad of me.
Yeah, it's very actually that's very fair.
Yeah,
that's very fair. We tried to make him a monster, and he's just like, I already am one. But no, I don't hate that Mark Rylance has it. If anything, honestly, him winning the Oscar has elevated him to a place where he's been appreciated now, and he's in a lot more films. And
he's kind of been in junk.
No, I mean he's in Dunkirk.
The outfit is not junk, sir.
The outfit was kind of fun.
He was good, and I'll tell you this: he was really good in Trial of Chicago 7.
He's excellent.
He was good in that. I mean, I think he's fun in Ready Player One, which I don't think is a particularly good film.
He's even more fun in Bones and All than he is in Ready Player One.
I love him in Bones and All.
Come on.
Never dully with Sully, baby.
Never dully with Sully.
So yeah, let me rephrase. He is not in Junk. He has just gone into, he's almost in Nicolas Cage territory where he cannot play
he's a chameleon
real person anymore.
Yeah, he is never bad, even if the movie is.
No, he's not. He's always good. We love Mark Rylance.
I wonder if Mark Rylance could have played Longlegs.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to say
I haven't seen Longlegs yet, but Mark Rylance could do pretty much anything.
Yeah. The kind of Nick Cage casting of Longlegs is so on the nose, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's also completely at odds with the tone of that movie, but
the movie fucking
just
sucks.
my take.
Sorry,
Ryan and I don't care for Longlegs.
One of the worst movies of the year.
If you like Longlegs, keep listening to the podcast.
Well, if you like things that this isn't an Osgood Perkins retrospective, it's a Terrence Malick one.
Well, I mean, some people shouldn't have careers. Osgood Perkins is one of them.
Wow, he's good in Legally Blonde.
I mean, sure,
he is good in Legally Blonde.
He is good in Legally Blonde. So is the guy that holds the boom mic.
Nepo baby, am I right?
For real. Because I too have seen the work of David Fincher and
whatever. We're not talking
about Jonathan Demme and all these things. Yeah, I know. Yeah, but you bring up Frozen Empire on every other show, so don't even start about bringing up.
No, I mostly bring up Coda.
That's true.
My bit is dying though.
Do you think Malick would have done a good job with Coda? It's about the sea.
Oh
the idea of Terrence Malick doing a version of Coda, that is music to my ears.
Well, the thing about imagining Terrence Malick doing any movie is that it would be so different than anything else somebody else made.
Honestly, the movie of the best picture winners of the last couple of years, like him making
Malick's
Quiet or Oppenheimer would have been interesting, honestly.
Can you imagine Terrence Malick's Parasite?
No, I mean, look, Parasite's good.
But, I mean, No Man Land's pretty adjacent. It's like Malick adjacent.
It's don't get me. Yeah, I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Don't be mean to Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao is very talented.
She's very talented,
but that is Malick runoff.
Yeah, and that's okay. Sometimes
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be good. That can be bad.
What was the Carey Mulligan movie about her being like an archaeologist? What was that one?
What is that? Oh, The Dig.
Bones?
The Dig.
Yeah, that was one that I was like, if you're gonna imitate Malick, this does a pretty good job of it. And I like that movie.
The Dig? You like The Dig?
I was pro The Dig. I dug the Dig.
You dug The Dig.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Okay. Well, a movie that I definitely know you dig is Badlands.
It's more like good movie.
Finally.
The directorial debut of
how long did that take us to
of
get
Terrence Malick. It always does, baby.
Dan, honestly, this is way faster than
this is way faster. This is way faster. And we'll get there. We almost do. Dan,
yeah.
I don't have a ridiculous question to kind of set up anything this series, other than I just got to ask you about your relationship with Terrence Malick as a director and what you do like about him. Maybe some things that you don't like about him, and then we can start talking about this movie called Badlands from 1973 that introduces, one of the great American directors of all time.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. He is one of the greatest American directors ever to have lived. He is probably in my Mount Rushmore of directors if I was going to have one.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was first really introduced to his work in a college film studies class where we did The Thin Red Line and talked about adaptation and editing and sound and montage and how he creates a story out of a lot that is not story in that movie. And I was so taken with how he filmed the natural world in that, and how he saw the war through that lens. And after that, I was just incredibly excited to see his next film, which I'm pretty sure was The New World. And I saw that like opening day. As soon as I it came to a theater near me, I saw it, and it was exactly what I wanted. It was poetry on screen, and I hate saying that because like it's such a often said thing about Malick's films, that they're visual poetry, but it really is. And there is something that is, to me, so perfect about The New World and how it tells the Pocahontas story, the story of the founding of America, and then going from that to The Tree of Life, which just kind of knocked my socks off. And I remember I took my partner at the time to see The Tree of Life, and I didn't really tell him what it was about. I just showed him the trailer, I think, and he's like, "Oh, that looks really pretty. Let's go." And when it was over, I lost movie picking privileges for a month. And I was fine with that because I had a great time. Uh, I was sitting there, and I was like, yes, this guy gets it. Cinema is a freaking church, and that is my altar. I worship at the altar of cinema, and my pastor of choice is Terrence Malick.
It's a good guy to follow with
Wow.
in religious teachings, I guess, is Terrence Malick.
Absolutely. And like
Him
I
and
also
Paul
feel like
Verhoeven should sit down and talk together.
Yeah, two of our
Yeah.
great Jesus scholars.
Right? No, I'm not. I'm dead.
Verhoeven and,
I'm dead serious.
No,
about
Verhoeven
it, yeah.
is literally
He's literally a
the
scholar.
Yes.
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
renowned Jesus scholars, like a literal the person Jesus scholars ever. So
It's wild.
Look, the two of them, have them and Martin Scorsese in a room together, you're going to have the best conversation about Christianity you ever had in your life. You know what? Resurrecting Bar Bergman, let him talk to them about it too.
Oh my
It's going
God.
to be great fucking conversation.
I feel like all four men would come out like just even more like guilt stricken than they already probably are. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Though to be a fly on the wall for that, right? No, I mean, Dan, that's actually really interesting because I was like that a lot when I was a kid. I would pick a movie out because I'd hear buzz and oh man, I remember my mom was dating this guy at the time, and he would go, "Are we watching a movie or are we watching a Ryan movie?" And a Ryan movie was like,
that's
you know
my
what I
whole
mean?
thing in my house.
Yeah. Well, Jay, you've been called out recently a lot for it, haven't you? Nally picking on you there for like.
Well, honestly, lately I think I've been going more kind of populist outside of the movie series, and Tony Scott was not a hard sell,
No.
right?
Is this a hard sell?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tough one for
This is go watch your
quote-unquote
artsy
not
fartsy
movie
movies.
person. Yeah, this is basement watching.
This is solo watch in my house. Like I got them all lined up, ready to go for the series.
But honestly, I would argue I like watching Malick's films by
Yeah,
myself
I don't wanna-
anyway.
That's how I originally watched most of these was in college, and I was assigned them, and I watched them by myself. And honestly, I think they are kind of weirdly better as a singular viewing experience, almost rather than a communal at times.
Well, they mean different
Super-
things to every person
Yeah.
that watches them.
Yeah.
There's not
they
like
really invite individual interpretation.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think that there's like collective groupthink, really, and that's what's kind of beauty about him. It's like, I mean, there are certain, just like on the surface, things that everybody can take from him, but I think, he's sort of like, or like Rorschach tests for people. You know what I mean? They go into him and they come out with like, what did you see there? And I was like, I don't know, but I saw that, and that kind of blew me away. And though I think the film today, though, Maybe I'm putting my foot in my mouth already, and I feel like we're going to be putting our foots in my mouth a lot during the series. But
No, we're going to
this,
sound smart the whole time. Nobody's
okay,
going to think we're stupid. Terrence
no, that's
Malick is a
fair.
very easy director to talk about without sounding
Ah!
dumb.
Well, I do think though, not
Oh, oh, oh dear.
I'm not trying to diminish Badlands because I think we're going to talk about a really
This is the
special
most
movie today.
straightforward movie.
Thank you, Jay, for saying it, and I didn't have to say it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little bit more straightforward. This is probably the easiest to film for like general audiences to probably consume, right? Like it's a pretty straightforward. It doesn't mean that there isn't artistic flourishes and there isn't things to really
Very much are. We'll talk about them.
tap into them in various meetings, but this is just kind of like if you wanted to just take a 90-minute period crime drama, then you can in the deep in the well, not in the deep south, but in deep South Dakota, you can do that, and you can take that with you. Otherwise, you can find other things. But we're here to talk about it, and obviously Malick produced, directed, and wrote this film. Is in it. Stars Martin Sheen, Sissy Spacek. And it's the first film in our series. So Dan, I'm going to kick it over to you and your thoughts on Badlands.
Badlands. Oh God. I always Malick, he's somewhat of an intimidating filmmaker to talk about his movies. I mean, the man translated Martin Heidegger when he was like 20.
It's
So
insane.
I'm,
He's a
I'm
true, like, undeniable genius.
yeah,
Even if you don't like his movies, you're like, this dude's
yeah,
smart as hell. What? This guy's
yeah.
a wonderkind.
So smart and can call on so many things to reference when he makes films, and obviously is thinking about a lot when he makes them, and little things that you would not even think about from watching the movie, or that you wouldn't even necessarily get from watching the movie, but to him it's everything is so deep and meaningful. And to me, it's not in the way of an E.g. Kubrick, where the sort of the obsessive attention to detail for me becomes often stifling and uh, kind of crowds out everything else, because he wants a definitive singular interpretation of the movie, and everything is in service of that. And Malick to me is more like I there's a lot that is important here because I want every viewer to take away something different. Um, and it's tough because there's so much to talk about with any Malick movie. Badlands is the film of his that I like most, that I have seen the least. So it's going to be really interesting to talk about this one. But I'm going to start to reach into my like college aesthetics and criticism honors class bag of tricks and start talking about this concept that aesthetic philosophers had about what they called the sublime, or as in more common parlance, the terribly beautiful, which is something that I usually associate with giallo films, right? Think of like the bright colors of Suspiria
Mhm.
and how they look really beautiful, but it's also so violent, and that awfulness and the beauty are working together in concert in a
That's a
way.
fascinating comparison.
Yeah. So I often think about these things as they are both ugly and beautiful, or both violent and beautiful. And Badlands, to me, it's not so much about the imagery that is sublime, but the ideas that it's working with. This idea of America as both this beautiful, unrestrained, completely free territory, but also marked by terrible violence that living beings inflict on each other. Um, this movie to me is so much about America, the problem of America, how we all desire freedom, but in order to live in a society, we can't have full freedom the way that we envision it. There is something that is so beautiful about Kit and Holly's story in this, but it's also at the same time awful. They literally kill people for no reason and live what seems to be, by all accounts, this kind of terrible nomadic existence, and maybe don't even like each other all that much, if, Holly's voiceover is to be believed, which is, I have to say, this is maybe my second favorite Malick voiceover in all his movies, after only The Thin Red Line. There,
It's so different than his other voiceovers, though, which is what's interesting about it to me.
yes. And the thing that I love about it is that it puts this movie in conversations with movies that I would not immediately associate it with. But the watching it this time, which is only the second or third time that I've seen this movie, but watching it this time, between that voiceover and the Carl Orff music that they use, I immediately started thinking about To Kill a Mockingbird and Scout's narration. She's looking back on her life and she's remembering this pastoral time that was not as pastoral as she remembers it. But whereas that movie is about kind of really reckoning with the idea that the past was maybe not as sweet as you remembered it when you were a kid, in Badlands, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Then To Kill a Mockingbird, I would say so.
Yes. And well, a lot more complicated
False.
about nostalgia too. Like
Yes.
it's not just about that. And you know, especially since it is clearly, Sissy Spacek doing the voiceover in the same voice she's using throughout the movie. Like, is Holly looking back on her life and talking about it, or is she narrating it in her head as she's living it? Or is this sort of like a Malikian, you are watching a movie and this is to remind you that we are watching a
Oh,
movie
this
and
is very
place you
much a
in this
movie about movies.
context?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there is something that is so, this movie, I think about, To Kill a Mockingbird for this time for the first time. But what I usually think about it, and like obviously Bonnie and Clyde, it's nearly impossible to separate this from that movie that came out, what, like 3, 4 years before. Very similar concept and tone, also both,
Oh,
ripped from the headlines. But the other thing I think about is this, Badlands in particular is this really twisted Romeo and Juliet story where they don't kill each other, they kill everyone around them. And what could possibly be more American than that?
it's true. It's absolutely true. It's the most American thing imaginable. And this is a movie
It
about
really
America,
is.
certainly about America at this particular time. You mentioned Bonnie and
Mhm.
Clyde. This was kind of the era of the road movie. That's sort of
Yep.
where we were at in film culture at the time. And I, Ryan, I'm doing all this reading. I'm doing the background on Terrence Malick. Honestly, I'm gonna save the childhood stuff for the Tree of Life
I think
for I
that
think
that's
obvious reasons.
I
Yeah.
think that's 45 minutes that we can save on this episode.
Yeah,
That's for
yeah.
sure.
But what I really want to dig into with him, sort of in the development of this film, and honestly, the establishment of Malick as a filmmaker in the first place. So Dan mentioned it. Malick is truly like a straight up genius
Yeah.
academic, not just a filmmaker.
Mhm.
And you know what I wasn't expecting to talk about in this series? The history of 20th century philosophy, but it is critical to the history of Terrence Malick as a filmmaker.
Yep.
And you look at Malick, he went to Harvard in the 60s studying philosophy, and he honestly envisioned himself becoming an academic. But I mean, he got a Rhodes Scholarship to go to Oxford too. He was like the
He taught
guy
at
at Harvard.
MIT. He
Yeah, he
taught
taught at
philosophy at
MIT. He
MIT.
lectured
Like,
at
come on.
all sorts of
Like,
places. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he was unbelievable.
I mean, Jay, the thing about his childhood, and this is the only thing, and it kind of ties into yours, is that he was sent away. His family lived in Oklahoma. He was sent away,
He went to
mostly to
a
school in
Christian
Texas.
school in
Texas.
Austin. Yeah.
In Austin. So that's where he gets a lot of, his sort of, obviously he's born and raised in sort of the South, but he's off because he is advanced beyond measure as an intellect, as a child from an early stage. So yeah, then he's getting offers left and right to go to these very prestigious schools at this point.
Yeah, goes to Harvard, gets the Rhodes Scholarship. But the shift that was occurring in the academic philosophy world at the time was trying to turn philosophy into some sort of definitive science, which Malick completely rejected, where he said, I want to understand or think about things that are impossible to understand. I think that's what philosophy should kind of be about in general. And so he didn't even finish his Rhodes Scholarship. He disagreed with one of his professors at Oxford and was like, I'm out of here. I don't want to, no, thank you. I don't want to do this. And one of his mentors at Harvard was sort of at the forefront of taking film seriously, because it wasn't taken seriously in the 60s. And New Hollywood, all of these guys who started studying film, because the only time you could really start studying film was kind of in the late 60s. Guys like De Palma and George Lucas and Spielberg were sort of at the forefront of film as not just an art form, but as a piece of philosophy. And Malick attached himself to that mentality and ended up making films, and not just as purely a filmmaker, but he was like, this is the best way that I can explore what interests me. The academia at the time had sort of rejected the interests that he had. And so he started at first writing films. He has sort of uncredited work on the Dirty Harry films very early in his career, which is interesting.
Honestly,
uncredited because they were like, this is too weird. You know what, this isn't really what we're looking for our Clint Eastwood cop movies.
To be fair, Jay, there's a lot of meandering in those Dirty Harry films.
I don't think that has anything to do.
I don't think it has anything to do with it,
but
but it's just an interesting time. When I literally watched Dirty Harry like a month ago before we did this, and I'm like, isn't this supposed to have like more of like a pace to it? And like that movie's weirdly a lot more patient.
It's a weird movie.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird, like, they're trying to tie it in with the Zodiac killer and all this shit going on at the time, and it's just like, this actually is a really patient procedural. But anyway, just kind of food for thought on that.
But he he goes to the AFI in 1969, like the very beginning of AFI. Again, kind of the establishment of film as a legitimized art form, really. And he's immediately kind of one of the prime candidates to start a film career and look at films in ways that people perhaps didn't in the past. And he starts out as this writer. He gets credited on a film called Pocket Money, which is a Paul Newman movie that I haven't seen yet. I really need to watch it. I'm definitely going to. His first short film was a spoof Western starring Harry Dean Stanton and Warren Oates called Lanton Mills. I desperately want to see this film, although no one can. Malick gave it to AFI under the stipulation that no one can see it, basically, unless you're in AFI.
Which I love that was his first movie, because if you look at Badlands, it is very easy to see how with another director and changing very little, this would be a satire.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, I think it is to a certain extent a
Yeah.
satire, because what I take from this film, I think first and foremost, is this idea of phony iconism, like just trying to turn yourself into an idea, an icon, rather than being your true self. And this idea of self, this idea of identity, is perhaps the number one idea that Malick explores over the course of his filmography. And he is fully formed from movie one with Badlands. It is, in my opinion, one of the great film debuts of all time. It is such a thoughtful film. It's Malick's funniest film, I would argue. And it is Malick dealing with nostalgia while also, to a certain degree, rejecting nostalgia and sort of addressing the idea of nostalgia in and of itself. It's just an incredibly thoughtful film for what kind of film it is, because on the surface, it does have everything that you would expect from sort of a crowd-pleasing um, thriller, murder mystery, road movie. But it is about so much more than that, to the extent that it's not even really about that. And I love that about it. It's not just about iconography, although that's certainly a big part of it, but it's also about sort of how humanity has transformed itself to reject sort of the natural order of things, I think, which is another one of Malick's biggest interests. Of course, nature is at the forefront of pretty much all of his movies. And you think about kind of this kill and be killed mentality, the survival of the fittest order of the natural world, and how humanity has sort of transcended that. And in Badlands, that's very much at the forefront of the film. It's like we are just at a very different point in kind of the evolutionary chain. And it's for better and worse. Certainly worse because you have these people who are so uninterested in that order. And because we don't have to abide by that order, we are able to indulge in our worst tendencies and worry more about how people interpret us than our place in the natural world. It's it's a philosophical gem. I mean, I'm going to talk for like 15 minutes uninterrupted for every movie that we talk about in this series, so I apologize, but I'll leave it at that for now and throw it over to Ryan. I think this movie is a masterpiece, one of the great first films ever.
It's hard to do a quick summary of
It
any
is
Malick movie, even your feelings
tough
on it,
because
because
it's about,
like
they're about
there's
a
so
million
much.
things, and
Yeah.
they're about 15 different things to me than they are to you, and than they are to
Yep.
Ryan. So, Ryan, you got 2 minutes.
Go. I don't know. No, it's actually interesting. Again, that Dan mentioned Bonnie and Clyde, because Arthur Penn was a mentor to Malick early on, especially at AFI.
Malick married
Oh.
Arthur Penn's assistant.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of inspirations started really kicking off for Malick, and he started writing a road trip movie. I did a little bit of research too, Mr. Ledbetter.
I think you actually just listened to what I said and are regurgitating it.
I'm regurgitating a little bit, but I also did.
No,
I did read.
But
no, I think that
believe it.
he started forming this, and again, through everything that Jay said is absolutely correct. This guy wanted to find a way, like most people do, find a way to talk about the things, the complexities within, I think, the 60s and 70s, which is an evolving landscape, not just for American cinema, but for politically, socially speaking. It is a time period that has so much complexity and yet richness, and needs to have uncomfortable conversations and do it in a way that is best for the individuals involved to want to do it. If you're needing to do it politically or socially, maybe it's rallies, maybe it's through poetry, maybe it's through art and paintings, maybe it's through literature, or in this case, for Terrence Malick, it's through cinema and through also images. And he is a master of images. There's no question about that. He is one of the greatest directors of all time when it comes to just visualizing movie images and giving us moments that we will ponder long after we all exist. He is just one of those people where you're like, are you sure you weren't going to be a painter? Because maybe that's the way you should go. Or maybe you should have, maybe you're all, it almost feels like at times he's born out of time, because he would be a sculptor, or he would be a philosopher, or he would be, one of the great painters of all time, right? He would rival just about anyone. And he would be a hell of a person. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. What you were going to say?
I was just, he reminds me sometimes like a Bogdanovich or a Truffaut, where like they're just as known for their scholarly writings about cinema as they are the films they made.
Paul Schrader.
Yeah. They're just known beyond what they're trying to say. And
except
I think
it's even more different than that, where it's like he could have been a nuclear physicist.
Yeah.
he could have, it's like he could have been whatever the hell he wanted to be, because he's one of the smartest individuals in his field. You see filmmakers nowadays, they're not even a percentage of the intellect, it feels like at times. Oscar Perkins. That's Terrence Malick.
Unnecessarily stray there.
But Badlands is one, and I've seen all of Malick's films, so these will all be rewatches. Some of them will be rewatches for the first time since college. Some of them will be first time since I saw them in the theater. A couple will just be films that I saw over the last couple of years. There's certain films that I gravitate towards more with Malick, and I think that's the other thing too about this series is it'll be interesting, the eras of Malick and the time, the massive man of time.
Floaty Malick is going to be very fun.
Floaty Malick,
late Malick.
Yeah, floaty late Malick, and obviously this sort of resurgence after being gone for such a long time, and we'll talk about all those details and what he was up to and all the crazy things he was doing. But if we're going to just talk about Badlands, which is, I think, one of the most fascinating debuts of all time. And it's 90 minutes, and it's pretty goddamn impactful. And I think this movie, on the surface, Jay and Dan, this is a crime story taken right out of the front pages and sort of inspired by it and everything, and about these two people on the run and trying to find a life outside of the rules of a system.
Charles Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugit, who killed 11 people.
Correct.
A lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
The real story is a lot worse than
it is.
what they show in this movie.
It is. I mean, like, I read a lot about this because I recently read the Springsteen book about him making Nebraska, and he watched this film in particular in creating a lot of the music off of that, and that's of course the inspiration for the Jeremy Allen White project that's coming up. So it'll be really kind of interesting how all that, if any of that stuff in this movie, come back into that picture down the road. But anyway, I think of this movie though more than just its surface level. I think Dan actually was talking a lot about it earlier, in that this is like a movie about, I think, lost souls in an era in which the world is changing its rules, and they don't know exactly what the rules are going to be. And I think the violence is reactionary to the evolving world around them. The nature that they live in is, I mean, they're not living for, like, there's a huge section in this film where they create their own utopia. They create their own set of rules. And within that rules, there's violence. And that violence is...
That treehouse rocks.
It's, super great treehouse. But it's also, it's violence for survival. And violence then a necessity. This movie also clearly is talking about celebrity and the idea of, I think by 1973, America had lost a little bit of its innocence, in a lot of ways, with murder on television and Manson family murders and things of that nature. And I'm not saying that Malick is going that far, but that is in the consciousness of the idea of when,
Oh, 100%.
Martin Sheen is at the end of this movie, and they ask him, "Why'd you do it?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought I just want to be a criminal." You know what I
Just
mean?
not that big a one.
Yeah, I just, and it's the idea of just being like famous, and it's not even for a talent; it's for something that anybody can do. But it's a dangerous and terrifying thing to do, which is to murder somebody, 11 people. And then I think Spacek is incredible in this movie. I think
She's awesome.
her narration is yes, like you said, Dan, spoken sort of in the past, like a confession in a lot of ways. A confession of a young girl she's what, 15, 16 years old at this time, and she's around these atrocities. She's not being really even at times able to fully address what is happening to her, especially when
The narration is the only way that she's able to express herself.
exactly, because in those moments she's being flung into space in a lot of ways, and I mean, especially when Kit kills her dad and they're on the run, and she's super quiet and delicate when we see her, but where we really get to know who she is by the time she's collected her thoughts and reassessed and sort of almost done her own autopsy of the events that has taken place. And
or has she?
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's a little bit of both, in my opinion. I think I think that by the end, she's telling his story, she's telling her story. Does she have regret? Does she, what does she feel like? I don't know. It doesn't go all the way there for me there, but I do think that
is it the question of, the actual story? Like, is she telling the actual story, or is she telling a story to make a point? Is she telling the story that people want to hear? Like Jay was talking about the iconography in this movie.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, I mean, this is beyond Malick, but this is the thing about history and legacy makers is who tells the stories, right? And so the papers will tell the grisly story of Kit and her, and it could be just a little bit, it could be more romanticized. It could be more, it's definitely going to be violent because you're going to see bodies and you're going to hear about these grisly murders. But for her, it could just be about, because she's 15, 16, it could be about like, I fell in love with this guy and he did these things and now he's gone. And I don't know really what happened or how I feel about it, but I'm lost. And a generation is starting to
discovering herself and discovering the world. I think one of the best parts of the film is when she just talks about, I wonder what my husband's doing right now, right? Like, I think about all the dominoes in my life that have now fallen, that are impacting my world in ways that I never could have imagined 2 months ago or however long it is, right? And that is in some ways a very simple philosophical idea, but when you actually start to think about the implications of those thoughts, it will drive you crazy. And that's kind of the Malick specialty, is exploring the unexplainable and exploring the unidentifiable, and imagining things that are impossible to realize. And I think this film does that very well through the lens of a much younger person in this movie who's internalizing ideas that she's never even considered before.
Yeah. And I think Sheen being purposely looking like James Dean in this movie.
My God.
Just smash. But also, too, I mean, it's
hot take.
Yeah.
Martin Sheen looks better than James Dean in this movie.
Interesting. That's a hot take.
He looks good.
He looks good. But again, it also is about...
But he's such a phony.
The American... Yeah, but that's also, too, it's like the American celebrity.
The economy,
fantasy.
The economy of phoniness. Yeah, for sure. It feels very forward-looking in that regard. Like, a lot of this film feels very modern in that way. Which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it is about, from the moment you see him and his hairdo and everything, it's like, oh yes, this person is obsessed with culture. He is obsessed with the idea of fame, and it is a thing of how much do you want to be famous or infamous? at this point. And I think that that's very forward thinking in 1973.
It's prophetic. Yeah,
it's wild.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the last line of the movie is incredible, where what does he say? You're quite an individual, kid. Think they'd take something like that into consideration? Where it's like, do you think the fact that I'm interesting and cool will allow me to live?
Yeah, that I've got a good jawline. You know what I mean?
It's so good.
Even when they he's think about that whole ending sequence. He doesn't even, he just pulls over to the side of the road because he's decided
after doing his hair, he builds that little monument
he builds the monument.
This is where Kit is going to die.
He points it out to them that's where you caught me. Yeah. And then
he's telling the story. He's creating it already.
Right. He's creating the mythology.
His legend. Yeah.
Then the cop in the car who, what a great line. I'd kiss your ass if you don't look like James Dean. What a line, what a delivery. And then when he's at they're about to ship him off, or
they're shipping them both off on the plane.
And they have all the journalists, and the guy's like, here's a souvenir from my killing spree. Who wants it?
Yeah, he's playing to the cameras.
They asked him for his
already.
autograph, basically. Its whole thing is treated like he's a celebrity, only he's in chains. And I feel like for 1973, this was way ahead of its time on the culture of American celebrity, the cult of American celebrity.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel a little also in response, obviously, like we said before, to films like Bonnie and Clyde. You know what I mean? And sort of examining that.
But also an upending of traditional Westerns. Too,
exactly.
Which is what Malick was so obsessed with. He was like, I want to make a Western. I want to make a Western. And obviously he does with both of his films in the 70s.
Yeah. And this is the quote unquote hero, I guess, or your protagonist in the film, not getting away with it, even though we're following a pretty complicated bad guy. Just going to point that out there. Kit's not really I mean, you can understand why she's drawn to him, and he's sort of picks her out of everybody, and he's sort of tractor beams her in a lot of ways. But he's also, there's nothing special about him. He's a garbage collector when we first meet him. He's this guy making it from job to job. He's a knucklehead. He's a, no pun intended, a rebel without a cause. You know what I mean? He's
a Korean War vet.
Yeah, and so he's just kind of going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing until he finds his calling, which is killing people. And then he confesses at the end, kind of always wanted to do, and kind of always felt like I was going to do this. And it's like, how much do you even believe in that? Because it's do you really believe that you were always going to be a murderer, or are you just saying that because you like this now? You like that you have the attention, that people are talking about you, that you're a name now. And then, like everything we just said, he's mythologizing himself. And that's probably what's going to be in the papers. But yet Holly knows the real truth, which is there's this guy that's scared as shit and doesn't have a plan, is making it up as he goes. And it's not as romantic, or it's not as interesting as probably someone's going to write in the Telegraph in the morning. And he's just he's no different of a kid than I am in a lot of ways, which is really, I think, is interesting about all her narration is she grounds his sort of heightness of whatever, you as the audience see him sort of put that charm on, because that's what he's doing to them at the end, is the same charm he's doing to her, but she's seen through it already. And by the time he's in an electric chair or whatever down the road, she knows the truth of the story. No one else will. And maybe she takes that to her grave. Maybe she tells her side of the story down the road. But that's sort of always the interesting thing about going back to Westerns, the John Ford of it all, and the man that shot Liberty Valance. It's will her story even matter? Because when it hits the papers, the legend is bigger than the truth. And print that's what's print the legend. And so that's what's so great about that movie. And honestly, it was movies that I kind of felt the tie into this time more than I did on previous watches in the past. That's the other thing too about Malick. I just got to say, Malick is one that when you watch his movies now, it's a whole lot different when you've seen more movies and you've lived a life. Like I don't think he's not a young man's filmmaker. He's somebody that you got to get 20, 30,
And
40 years under your belt as a film appreciator in order to really, I think, fully 100% appreciate him, because he's in the fabric of American filmmaking and culture, and saying
The
so
number
much.
of films that have been inspired by his style
Oh, yeah.
is off the charts.
yeah, for sure. And Ryan, that actually, I want to talk about my background briefly with Malick, which is that
Okay.
I don't think I saw a Malick film
He's your uncle?
until I was probably
Oh, okay.
25. I have never seen a Terrence Malick movie in a movie theater.
Really?
And he is my favorite director of all
Jay,
time.
you haven't gone to like a rep screening of Tree of Life or anything?
I have never had the opportunity, as far as I know.
Oh.
Maybe
I feel
just
like
missed
Atlanta
it,
would
but
have that there for you, or you
I
would have
know.
tried
I need to
see
get
if-
them to do it, and they need me to introduce every
Yeah.
movie.
Wait,
You know, I
if you
glad.
hang on, Jay, if you
Yeah.
introduced every one of those movies though beforehand, you do know that those introductions, because you've read all these books, would essentially be this podcast, and those people would never get to watch those movies.
Yeah, it would be a 45-minute introduction. It would be
Exactly.
awesome, and everybody
Yeah,
would love it.
they limit you.
Yeah,
time-wise
you know it's
for
5
those.
minutes,
Like-
right? Yeah, they'd be like, "And go, Jay." You know what I mean? So
No,
it's
but
like last night when I went to my movie, they were like, the guy came into the audience and he was clearly working for, I guess, the draft audience. He's like, "Yeah, there'll be a Q&A after the movie, and I know the internet's not been working here, so we might see it or might not. Anyway, enjoy the show." It was 2 minutes, and it was like less than a minute he was out. So can only imagine Jay introducing, like, let's say he did Thin Red Line or Tree of Life. He would be like, "Anyway, here's my birth chart, ladies and gentlemen. Let me
Truly.
go
Like,
down."
here's my family tree and all of the loss I've experienced in my life, and how these films have allowed me to cope with that loss in some way. But I honestly, I'm glad I didn't see Tree of Life when I was 20. Right?
I did.
I don't think I would have understood it at all. I think I would have rejected it in a lot of ways. And
Jay, can I tell you
honestly,
something?
25 is young to see Tree of Life. But
Jay,
yeah,
can I tell you something that's going to make you mad?
sure.
So I saw Tree of Life in theaters, and I was going to
Mhm.
wait until Tree of Life to tell you this, but I think it's just fair to, since we're talking about aging with Malick in conversation. When I first saw Tree of Life, I fell asleep 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the movie. I did, because he put me in such a comfortable state early on. I
It
was
is
like,
at once a comforting film and an entire, like, it gives you occasionally like a sense of existential dread, and honestly that might change from viewing to viewing.
yeah.
And-
But
and
as
that's kind of the
but
magic
when
of
the
Malick.
first time I saw it, I was just like, "Oh my god, I feel like, did I take a Xanax before this?" And it was like some melatonin. And but no, since then obviously that's changed. But I think that that was the only Malick I've been able to see in theaters. Every other time it's been at home, because down here it's very rare that we get the Malick movies on the big screen, because like when you got into sort of the To the Wonder and Song to Song, it was very limited runs. A Hidden Life never
Well,
came.
those movies made
all.
what, like $500 million at the box office?
Yeah, they actually made more money than Avatar, which is wild.
Yeah, wouldn't you know?
And yeah, I mean, like, they were everywhere. Everyone was talking about, like, To the Wonder, To the Wonder. The people have been chanting it in the streets.
You couldn't turn a corner without hearing somebody talk about To the Wonder.
Look, it is the film that Ben Affleck is most known for.
Yeah.
And Olga Kurilenko is a worldwide sensation.
Yeah, because we talk about her in every movie now. But anyway, no, yeah, I think that you have to be a little bit older, which is funny because then
or just mature, which I was not when I was 20.
Yeah, I mean, like,
There's
yeah.
that.
Well, I mean, I think in a
I'm
lot
sure there
of
are plenty
ways,
of people who could appreciate Tree of Life at 21, although I think it means more to you or at least a very
no,
different.
I think that
It's interpreted differently when you're
it
30
definitely-
than you're 20.
Yeah, it definitely meant something very different to me when I saw it in my 20s than it did when I watched it in my 30s.
I was going to say, but I also think too, taking present company excluded here, there are a lot of people out there in this world that even in their 20s, they need the 10, 20 years. Like even there are not a lot of many 18, 19-year-olds that are watching Terrence Malick and having
I was one of them.
you know,
Absolutely
I know,
not.
but what I'm saying is that I'm not very hopeful of the future generations. Let's just point that out there of being able to pull Terry off the Criterion shelf and being able to find the nuance that even that we were able to do, let alone when you're 30 and 40. Because I think, he makes movies for grown-ups, folks. And I think that's
And you have to meet these movies on
AARP.
Malick's terms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to be willing to give yourself over to these movies.
Yes.
You have to be willing to expose yourself to spiritual ideas that you might be uncomfortable with.
It's vulnerable filmmaking, so that it requires the audience to be vulnerable as well.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say perhaps this movie less so than that.
No, I think starting next week
stuff.
I think starting even next week is when we're really, like, not to say that we're having a bad time here, but
I think this movie is a masterpiece. I think
then I love this movie a lot. But I do think that, like, again, like we said, and this is not a shot on the movie, this is his easiest film for most audiences to probably be able to consume.
It's the easiest one to recommend,
probably. And
maybe Thin Red Line, just because it's kind of a war movie.
Kind of a war movie, but
it's a very weird war movie.
Definitely this one, I think. And then Days of Heaven is like, oh, it's like one of those where you're like, oh, there's the guy I know. There's the guy that's gonna be where I start. This week I'm loose. Next week I'm gonna start being scared shitless. Because it's just like every word I say, did I say it right? Did I do it? Did I do it okay? Did I meet up to his expectations? It's almost like if you don't meet the movie on his level, you're disappointing said director at that point, which not a lot of filmmakers you can do, because you can find, I just don't think that there's he doesn't have a lot of comps in terms of his experiences, I think, unless you think, Jay, that there's other filmmakers that are like him, where you have to meet him on his level, his terms, and they're this rich and robust of filmmaking.
No, I mean, there certainly are people. I don't think there are directors who make films the way he does, as well as he does. You look at somebody, think about David Lynch, for example, who is a guy who makes occasionally very opaque films, very different films than Terrence Malick.
I was thinking about
Lynch, a guy who
week.
refuses to explain his movies because he wants you to think about them through your own personal lens. And Malick is the exact same way, where not only does he not want to explain his movies, he goes and lives in some sort of hole in the ground where no one can find him. So
wait, you've read all these books
films at all?
You've read all these books and you haven't found him?
No, I'm looking for him and Pynchon. That's who I'm trying to find. I haven't found either of them yet, but we're going to get there.
Thomas Pynchon supposedly in Inherent Vice somewhere.
Yeah.
Multiple times. He'll never, PTA will never tell you where he is, but he's supposedly in there. And there's theories online about it. It's great.
We got to get Benoit Blanc on the case.
I do declare I'm looking for Thomas Pynchon and Terrence Malick.
I think that's what the next
Knives Out movie
is about. Yeah, I think that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of those movies, Jay?
I think they're good. Okay. They're not amazing, but they're fun.
I'm looking forward to the next one.
I like the first one. I like Knives Out more than Glass Onion.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but then I'm also looking forward to them maybe just like shelving this for a little bit.
Yeah,
and Ryan
I would like
Johnson,
to see Ryan Johnson make something else.
Exactly, Ryan Johnson make something else, get a blank check big time, because he can then always go back to this later on down the road.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
And Daniel Craig will never tell him no, and then he can just hire the other half of Hollywood he has never worked with to make that film. You know what I'm saying? So I think they're great. But anyway, back to Badlands.
The complete opposite end of the spectrum from the Knives Out movies. And you know what? All the better for it. There's something that is, even in these really expansive landscapes that these two characters find themselves in, this is a remarkably intimate movie. And what I really love about it is that it's very romantic about a lot of things, and it's even romantic in some ways about the journey that Holly and Kit are on, at least as it relates to their relationship with each other. I mean, that scene where they're dancing to Nat King Cole, I mean,
For a
so
director
good that
who is
Steven Spielberg
so,
went on to rip it off years later in The
yeah,
Fabelmans. Okay, like that's just what you got to do when you have to dance people in the headlights. It's a beautiful thing.
and for a director not known for needle drops
Yeah,
whatsoever, an incredible needle drop. Yeah.
absolutely incredible. And
Unless you consider old hymns needle drops. Are those needle
Those
drops?
are the original.
I don't know.
Those
technically,
are the original
but
needle
yeah.
drops.
I guess
It's just
so.
like, suck it, Tarantino. I'm dropping hymns.
Pop music
Yeah.
needle drops.
You think he's just like?
Contemporary
You
music.
think he's
needle
just
drops?
pulling the hymns off the record vinyl and playing them while he's typing this shit up? You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Honestly, probably, yeah. But but the thing that I love about this so much is that like it never romanticizes what they've done. It's like
No, it leaves
when
it up to the viewer, really, is what it does.
well, and when he kills, whenever Kit kills somebody, it is just completely dispassionate.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is just, oh, bang, dead. And I love, like, watching the interviews and hearing Martin Sheen talk about, Terrence Malick telling him this gun is like a magic wand.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You point it at the person and they're gone. And that, like, what an incredible metaphor for America. Like, it's just freaking perfect. Like, that is American bravado in one image.
Mhm.
Is Martin Sheen, young Martin Sheen, looking like a dead ringer for James Dean, just hacking out a gun and shooting people for no reason because he decides, I don't like the cut of your jib. And I think there is something that's really important about this movie set when it's set, right? And coming out when it came out. Like there is something that is so like it's pointed to me that Kit is a Korean War veteran and this is coming out at like part of really bad time for the US and Vietnam.
Yeah.
And there is something that I look at him in this movie and other than the, like being like, oh yeah, he also was in Apocalypse Now, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There is something that I can't watch this movie and not see him as a disaffected PTSD afflicted veteran who,
Mhm.
Served his country and came back and realized that he had nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like those shots in the field. I mean, I wouldn't put it past it as well. I was thinking a lot about when I was rewatching this too. I was thinking about Bonnie and Clyde. I was thinking about The Master. And sort of like you're saying, Dan, disillusioned individuals who, in that film, Freddy is coming back and he's looking for answers and he is already a violent, scared individual, tempted by every sort of temptation. That movie obviously is just a wild tapestry that we've talked about before already on the show. But for Kit, I mean, he is this veteran, and I think he is sort of fed up with coming back after, like most veterans do. They come back to this country, and their job now is to just collect trash the rest of their lives. They've done the ultimate service, and they've sort of been discarded, and they're fed up. They're angry, and when they were at war, they at least had control. They were at least in charge. They at least had some essence of power. And I think he feels a sense of euphoria and a sense of being a man when he's around Holly and there's this obviously this attraction. But I think what he was really more turned on is by the idea of power and the violence. And that's why it becomes like this isn't showy violence. This is very, like you're saying, Dan, it's very nonchalant. It's very just like I'm stacking the bodies at this point, and it's like, yeah, you say one thing wrong, and I've got the power because I've got the guns. And he's not necessarily the smartest person in the world, but in war, it doesn't matter who's smart, really. It's who has the gun and who pulls first. And that's very Western idea. It's very much the old West of, if you're the fastest gun, you probably are the most scariest person, and then therefore you're able to control it. But, you know, I think the great thing about this movie in the third act is Holly, the fact that he is 25, he's sort of lived a life and he's jaded by the world, and she does have, her innocence is being stripped away slowly and slowly, just like our country's innocence has been slowly stripped away over the murders and the violence that's been happening in the late 60s and the early 70s, and then getting into the Vietnam War. But by the end of it, just her refusing to want to go, her refusing to want to be around this anymore, her heart being so broken, and just the willingness of her just being like, I give up. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of this whatever fantasy that you're trying to create. And he just yells and he's just done with her at that point. And it leads into, I actually think, a pretty great and car chasing that Malick shoots, which is, again, he's not known for this. He's not known for shooting action, but it's like, shit, if he wanted to, he could be Michael Mann for all we know. Like, goddamn.
I mean, he's one of the greatest directors of all time. He could probably do anything if he wanted.
He could have done anything.
Really?
And
what
yet,
Marvel
the way that
movie do you
police
think he
car-
should direct?
Oh,
The
Thunderbolts. He should have really done the Thunderbolts.
That'd be awesome. God, that'd be great.
That'd be great because it's political. You know what I mean? Super like. Oh, he would have been great with Winter Soldier or something.
Yeah,
like that.
That's enough. I regret even bringing it up.
But
how would he have done it? How would he have done in the Quantumania?
Enough. This is enough. I'm over it.
Oh, I would. You know what? No, I want to see Terrence Malick's Multiverse of Madness.
I'm rejecting my own bit. This is enough.
Oh, him with the Marvels. Oh,
it's over.
I will say, like, that chase,
Iron Man 2.
I laugh every single time that police car almost flips itself over.
Yes, it's so
and
funny.
then rights itself. It's freaking perfect.
I just love the sound that the cars make, the clunks, and but it also seems like too, in this car chasing that's impeccably shot, and while he seems kind of desperate, it also seems very much just like, I've got to do this car chase, but I know what it is inevitable here. This is like, it is the end of the line. And there's, usually in movies like this, like a Bonnie and Clyde or things like that, you're rooting for the bad guys to get away, right? You're rooting for them, and they believe they can get away, right? They know that they can get away. There's that, it's Butch and Sundance. They can shoot their way out of all the people around them, right? You know what I mean? That's the classic Western, fighting to the last bullet. And there is a little bit in Kit where he's just like, he just kind of gives up. Cars start hitting each other, and he just kind of, in my opinion, he's just like, well,
he wants to go out in a blaze of glory.
I'm going out in this blaze of glory, but it's not really that glorified in this chase. So what am I going to do? Yeah. I'm going to start bullshitting just like it got me here in the first place, and see if that'll stick. And I think that's really more interesting.
Right?
Yeah, he thinks he's Jesse James, or he's Bonnie and Clyde.
Also, right from the beginning, like, he tells her almost right away, like, yeah, this isn't going to end well. Like, they both kind of know that the writing's on the wall. It's not whether or not they'll get caught. It's how long until they get caught.
It's when.
Yeah.
Yeah, not how, but when.
Oh, there's definitely a sense of inevitability to it. And I want to go back to what Ryan was saying sort of about Kit's portrayal of himself and his kind of personality. And I think one of his most important traits, and this goes along with him being a soldier, and also you see it very early on when he comes across a dead dog while they're collecting trash, and he's making jokes about it. And there's an indifference to death that Kit possesses that I think is one of his defining characteristics.
Like, he's like, what does he say? Like, I'd pay like $5 to like mess with it or something like that, or throw it in the compactor.
Yeah, but he says like eat it or something.
Like put it in the compactor, I think is what he means. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to do that. That's weird.
He's like, and also that's not the breed of dog it is. What the fuck are you talking about? Which is great. Another great dialogue.
Yeah, and I think there's also maybe something to be said in that regard with the nature of watching a movie, where there is this distance between what's actually going on in the movie and the viewer. And I think another moment where that is so critical is when Holly looks at the, I don't even know what you call it, like the viewfinder or whatever, in the
Yeah.
woods, and that is her sort of, in some ways, finding herself and finding some sort of further reality or even some other realm in a certain way, where she is discovering this level of empathy and looking at the world in a way that she never really has before, which is representative of how transformative watching a film can be, looking at images of other people. Again, that Ebert idea of a machine for empathy, right? And I think that's very important. And I think there's also an element of Terrence Malick himself viewing his directorial debut feeling a bit like a phony in his own way. And you can build meta narratives out of anything, but I think that's definitely an element of this film. But you think about his indifference towards death. You think about even just the very idea that America is this young country, and you think about Holly as this young person who doesn't even realize her potential for evil or the potential of evil in general. And when you're in the throes of Vietnam, you've got this Korean War veteran where World War II is perceived as the one kind of justifiable war, right?
Yeah.
America wasn't wholly involved in World War One. World War II was an anomaly as far as warfare is concerned. Korea was
The
not
forgotten war.
ideal, kind of the forgotten war because it should be forgotten. And then Vietnam is the most heated debate of any war that America has entered to that point, because not only is it very questionable in its genesis, but it's also very publicized. And there are a lot of people protesting it. And I think that in many ways speaks to Holly's existence, where she is kind of realizing the very nature of evil and recognizing that her own actions have consequences in the same way that America is for the first time kind of reckoning with this idea that they're intervening in ways that are detrimental to the greater universe. And there is this universality to everything that Malick does, this idea of shaking up the natural order in the same way that warfare is the ultimate way to shake up the natural order. So again, very philosophical ideas, very, very deep things. And somebody might watch the movie and find the exact opposite
You're
ideas in the film, but that's Malick, man.
you're saying all this stuff, and I now want to reread Songs of Innocence and Experience again and see if there's connections there between that and this
Yeah.
movie, because I'm sure there are. And there, you have literally innocence and experience in these two characters, a 15-year-old girl who has not ever been outside her house, even, whose father keeps her almost
Or at least
locked
trying
up
to
in
portray some sense of
school.
experience, right? He's
Yeah,
still young and
but he has an
dumb.
experience, and like he's
Yes.
He's
he's
seen a
been to
war.
war.
Yeah.
Like that's why there's
She's
the,
being caged up like
he
your
He's
dad's
kind
doesn't.
of been
son.
involved in the ultimate evil
Yeah,
of
it's why
man.
he does not react to all this death around him.
Yes.
But then I love that Malick, he complicates any sort of reading of it by like placing them for the middle of this movie in this complete natural setting and questioning, like all these things. What is nature? What in us is nature versus what is
Well, they
nurture?
talk about literally communicating with nature. Like sometimes I hear
Yeah.
voices in the trees, and
Yes, yes, and
yeah.
communicating with nature, and also communicating with living in nature. Like that,
Mhm.
everything about how how he shoots them in their little treehouse is completely different than how we get them in any other
Yeah.
interior space in the movie. And it's gorgeous, and this really incredible piece of production design by the legendary Jack Fisk, who
Jack
we
Fisk,
could we
another
could spend
wonderful
another
love
whole
story
hour
between
talking about just Jack Fisk, but we won't.
but
But
Spacek
that,
and Fisk, also another love
yeah,
connection in this
incredible.
movie. Been
Yep,
married since 1974.
I
What
love
a
I
couple.
truly, like they are couple goals in
That's
every
50
way.
years. That's a
Yep.
long time.
I met Fisk.
He's a great guy.
He's a nice guy. And I thought I was going to meet Sissy for a half second. I was telling Dan this before the show. And yeah, but their kids their daughter looks just like her.
She's one of the most unique looking actresses, especially at this age.
Yeah, I mean,
has ever
this is her,
which is a power in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is her breakout role, and then she goes on to have a. I mean, she has a great decade.
When is Carrie?
It's in 3 years.
Yeah.
And then three women, and then she wins an Oscar in 7 years from this.
And she looked like she was 16 until she was 32.
It's true. But imagine in like the earliest days of your career, like your first big role is in a fucking Terrence Malick movie, and then maybe you do one movie or TV movie.
Yeah,
and
but they
then
didn't know
with
who
Robert
Terrence Malick was at this
Altman.
point. Yeah, Terrence Malick was nobody in 1973. You know?
Yeah, although like you watch an interview with them, and everyone who worked in this movie was like, "Yeah, it was pretty clear right away that this guy is a genius."
But also, there were a lot of people that protested in the middle of this movie. There was a giant explosion when they burned the house down that people were injured on, and
it's crazy.
Like half the crew quit in the middle of production.
They went through 3 different directors of photography.
Yeah,
come on.
Wait. There was complications around a Terrence Malick movie getting released, and there was none of that stuff happened.
Well, sometimes there's not been any challenges during production.
Yeah,
it's just getting the damn films themselves.
Yeah. But this one was kind of a mess.
But no, I mean, like she's working with now we know Terrence Malick, but then she's also working with De Palma and Altman
and Robert Altman, and
then by the start of the next decade, she's won the Oscar already, and so it's for
imagine
she's great in that movie too. She's in Coal Miner Stars. She's wonderful in that film. It's I mean, I don't think I'd give her the Oscar, but she's great in it. And then she's one of our great character actresses. Honestly, towards the 80s and 90s is when she's just showing up and things, and there's never a bad time.
I'm trying to think of my favorite SpaceX post 70s.
Post 70s? Yeah, because she's great in 3 Women.
It's probably too easy to say in the bedroom.
I gotta tell you this though, the one thing, I know this is gonna sound like a rude thing to say, but I'm just gonna say it. She's the one part in JFK I just don't like. Because she's got to play the housewife.
Right, she's in JFK.
She's got to play. What, you don't like JFK?
No, I love JFK.
Okay.
I just always kind of forget she's in it.
She plays Costner's wife.
Yeah,
and she's just like, she doesn't believe him. And it's the one part of the movie where I'm like, come on, I know Sissy Spacek. She's this woman's a little bit smarter than this.
Yeah.
Is smarter than this character is on the page. You know what I mean? And so it's.
I think
the frustrating.
I go the straight story.
She's great.
So good in that.
She's great.
I forgot she was the mom in Hot Rod.
She is the mom.
Oh yeah,
that rocks.
I think she was great a couple years ago with her and Redford and the Old Man and the Gun.
Oh yeah, the Old Man and the Gun.
Yeah,
that was.
She's
fun.
so like
I love the 2 of them together.
Them in those diner scenes, I'm just like, oh, that's fucking movie stars right there.
Yeah,
freaking. That's a guy who's very inspired by Malick.
Lowry, oh yeah,
Lowry, big time. Like A Ghost Story doesn't exist without Terrence Malick. You know what I mean?
Even his Dragon, yeah,
or Eight Them Body Saints. To be fair, that's takes a lot of inspiration from this movie.
Yes, a lot.
But or even the fantastical elements of something like The Green Knight. Maybe not Peter Pan and Wendy, but yeah,
that's a movie that definitely exists.
Remember when we watched that a couple
Totally.
years ago? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
never forget it.
I like Lowry though. He's a good guy.
I do too. I like him a lot.
He's a good guy.
I think that was just a misguided choice. Probably the most he's ever gotten paid to make a movie. So
probably so. Hey, good for him taking the paycheck.
I agree. Get that bag.
Get that bag. Anything else you guys want to mention about Badlands?
Oh my god.
Yeah, how much time you got?
Yeah, right.
All the time in the world.
Is this his most cynical movie?
Malick's?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think
Sure.
that kind of comes with youth to
Is
a
this
certain
the
extent.
most cynical you think?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
Hmm.
have to watch Knight of Cups and Song to Song again, but I don't
Ooh,
want to.
Knight of Cups
I
is
was gonna say maybe Knight
definitely
of Cups.
a good
Yeah,
one.
because Knight of Cups is pretty. But also I don't like Knight of Cups, so
No, nobody's perfect.
yeah. And that movie is proof positive that Terrence Malick is not perfect. So I there is one thing that I really want to mention about this movie is that
Yeah.
like I don't think I've seen a more literal depiction of amber waves of grain and purple mountains majesty in a movie ever. But I there is something about
That
that
is as damn spot on, Dan. I'm like, shit. Yeah,
I
he
and
really
I
took those
was
lyrics to heart, didn't he?
but then like you look at it in the movie and I'm like and it's like impossible to not think oh this movie is like literally about America, like about America's soul, about what America stands for. But there's something about Kit standing there with his arms over his gun looking at that horizon line, at that sky, at these signifiers of the Great
Yeah.
Plains of America,
It's weirdly
and both looks like he's crucified and like a
I was just
scarecrow,
gonna
like
say
he's
it's like
standing guard over America. But there's
Mhm.
something of like that how that gun is so horizontal and everything when they're outdoors is all these horizontal, all the vistas and all it really emphasizes how wide everything is. And the only things in this movie that are vertical are the humans, that mountain, and the rich guy's house.
We haven't talked about the rich guy's house. We haven't even talked about Malik's cameo.
Yeah.
Malik's fucking cameo. And I just love that he manages to squeeze in this thing into this movie about them being like he included something about like the wealth gap, like how they Kit and Holly are currently poor, and because of what has happened, they're probably never going to be rich. And I thought of him standing there like this mountain, this vertical statue in a horizontal plane standing guard against America, like no one is going to get past me. And then I see that rich guy's house, and I think the same thing. No one is getting past this rich house. You, do not enter, no trespassing.
Yeah, but then he also just becomes like a coward when when he's at the door when he's trying to like talk. He's like, I gotta, I,
Yeah.
I gotta go back in there because he doesn't have the gun. In that moment, he doesn't have it with him. You know what I mean? So his power is lost,
Mhm.
and then it becomes a social fight. Then at that point, someone that is, here and he's here,
Mhm.
and
It's fascinating.
it's a fascinating dance, that conversation, because
Yes.
it's like
Mhm.
okay, where's this tough guy that's been killing all these guys? Oh, he's gone. He's been barking orders inside this place already. And then a guy comes to the door and he becomes a kid. Like that's the thing. It's like he's a 25-year-old, but he's just at times the 15-year-old that Holly is. And it's
Well, it's all-
anytime there's
yeah.
an authoritative figure around.
It's
You know
it's
what I mean?
all about this idea of
And isn't that back to
this-
like
this-
military like sense of like when somebody with an authoritative figure is around,
yeah,
it becomes
Yeah.
becomes a
part of
scared
it.
little
You
soldier.
defer, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But also the idea that like he can be that around Holly because
Mhm.
she's only 15 and she's a woman and she didn't know anything.
Well, she's never
But
seen the things that he's done, nor like
yeah,
again being able to pontificate in a way that romanticizes, or he said, yeah, he could be one of the guys and sort of, I guess, bloviate his time over in Korea, right? And where he, and maybe his place and all of it. But then when that's the real Kit, in my opinion, when he's around people that have other power or other authority, and all that
The
charm
machismo.
and the chismo and everything just drips away, and it's a
Yeah.
scared little boy with toy. You know what I
He's
mean?
way more concerned about perception than
Yes.
his inner self.
Yes.
And you see that inner self come out in those moments of true distress where, like you said, Ryan, he doesn't have that gun as his protection, right?
Yeah.
And he is so much more concerned with how people think of them, how people think of him, because there is this internalized self-loathing to him because of what he's experienced, and also this internalized, I would say probably depression because of the experiences that he has had that is so utterly American.
Hmm.
And again, I think that does have something to do with the fact that this is a younger nation who perhaps because of its lack of history doesn't have a fully defined identity. And over the course of the 200 years to the point that this film was made, it's all about representing itself. There is sort of this little brother complex to America at the time where it's about overcompensating for its lack of history by exerting its power over the rest of the world and intervening in the activities of the rest of the world. And that is in some ways personified by Kit.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
like,
also very like America was kind of very adolescent in that way, like
Yeah,
telling the
yeah.
adults in the room, all these nations that have been run forever, like, no, 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 you're doing it wrong. This is how you should do it,
we're
even though we know
3 years.
nothing. Yeah.
We're 3
You know,
years
I went
away
to
from the bicentennial at this
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
I
know?
went to Italy recently, and it was kind of incredible just being there. And you do the touristy stuff. You go on some of these tours, and they'll be like, yes, this building was built in 1250, and you're like, that is literally 3 times older than the United States of America. And it's kind of stunning to put that into context and just realize just how young America is.
We
And there
are a
was this
very
youthful
immature.
vibrancy that America exuded for a long time that I would argue is sort of fading away at this point. But there was kind of this realization of the naivete of that vibrancy, I would say around this time. The 70s were not the greatest time in America. And um, this film kind of, and that's where I think New Hollywood came from in a lot of ways. Why the 1970s? Not just because film was being legitimized as an art form and as a philosophical tool, but also because of the kind of dire circumstances of the era. And this is around the beginning of that. This is what, a year after The Godfather. This is before Taxi Driver, before so many of the great films of the 70s. This is sort of at the forefront of New Hollywood, although Malick doesn't have much in common, I would argue, with the most popular figures in the New Hollywood era, stylistically and aesthetically.
No, he's not. He's kind of amongst the regular heads, I guess, of the 70s.
He knew those guys, though.
He knew those guys, but he's not in their circle. You know what I mean? Like, he's not.
He just had a different sensibility than them.
Yeah, and I mean, he's we don't. I think that you hear
he was a
I've
Harvard guy, not a
yeah
film school guy.
Film school guy.
Well, I think you hear. I've heard Scorsese and I've heard Coppola talk a lot about his films, Malick's films, as inspiration and shots and everything. Days of Heaven is a big influence for Scorsese, and a lot of during that time, what's so great about the 70s, and what I think we all revere about that, is the it's kind of like the way in which music in the 60s was in a lot of ways, with bands, like the Beach Boys and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, how they would make music to call and respond one another. And these filmmakers started kind of doing that and to push each other.
Oh, yeah, and then, big competition.
Until it became a destructive, part of it, and then formed the 80s. Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, and we talked about that a little bit.
Kind of like the Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson thing, where they were kind of rivals to a certain extent.
They were, but now they're good friends.
Yeah, well, there was a respect. There was a mutual respect.
There's a very mutual respect.
But it was like, you make really good movies. I want to make better movies than you.
But also no director of the 70s was probably like, Tarantino, where he like unabashedly just said like, I really like Boogie Nights, Paul, but the film that Burt Reynolds is making is trash in that movie, and just like kind of ripping.
Are you kidding
parts
me?
of
Have you seen that John Carpenter interview where he's like, Robert Altman is garbage?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
That was
Well, to be fair,
that one's hilarious.
I mean, yeah, he's Carpenter's got very out there.
Yeah,
He
but
would-
I honestly,
He'd be a little bit of an
miss-
outsider too, to be fair. But I
wish
miss
so
that.
bad that directors would be as openly
Well, that's what we talked about
with other directors.
What we talked about with
they
It's
Freakin'.
so much more fun.
Yeah,
You know what I
it is.
mean?
Like every director should be required to make a diploma, like the diploma documentary,
Oh, the
where it's just like
Mm.
talking about how bitter they are about their experiences and the people they worked with for like an hour and a half. They probably have way more footage than that. Like,
Please.
I
they
mean-
did that. Paul Schrader did that little short that went to Criterion Channel, I think, that Alex
Yeah.
Ross Perry made, which was kind of a similar thing, and I liked that a lot.
Well,
Obviously,
if
Paul
you
Schrader
just-
is not afraid to speak his mind.
I was just going to say you can just go to Facebook for that shit. You don't have to go.
Yeah.
You don't need for a documentary. But I mean, like, I mean, how many commentaries did we hear of Freakin', and just the off the wall stuff that he would that's so great about it. And we talked
the
about
Nick
it.
Refn,
The Rick
interview.
Refn, the stuff, the cruising, commentary of just hating on Pacino. It was like so revered by so many actors, and he's like, Al Pacino couldn't, act his way out of a paper bag essentially, and that's just being nice.
Great.
You know what I mean? So no, I agree with you, but I think that Malick kind of seemed like weirdly in his own sort of world in creating these films, and was not as big of wasn't it didn't have as friendly, I guess, of a relationship with the studios as a lot of those other directors did as well. And then
Again,
I mean,
he's like really positioned himself as a real artist.
yeah, and I mean he
Yeah.
makes 2 movies and then he disappears for like 20 years. So it's
Well,
not like-
the whole reason
Comes back
that
with the greatest war movie of
Yeah.
the 1990s.
he does all of the elements of his movies. When he was at AFI, he was like, I want to learn how to edit. I want to learn how to edit sound. I want to learn how to do everything
Did
so that I can freaking make the movie that I
he's
want to.
he's one of he's very much like it reminds me a lot of like how Soderbergh does things, where Soderbergh's very hands-on every single aspect of his filmmaking. So I wouldn't be surprised.
What would
if-
Malick's Kimmy look like?
what would Malick's Ocean's 11 look?
Wait, what would Malick's Her look like?
like from Spike Jonze?
Yeah,
Well, that'd be interesting.
right.
Probably good. It would be a Terrence Malick movie.
It'd be a
Terrence
I
Malick
would
doing
probably- I would probably
AI.
like-
Come on.
What would Terrence Malick the laundromat look like? How would that?
Oh,
how would
God.
that-
I'm
You
not
think
sure.
if-
I'm not sure anybody could have really saved that one.
No.
Do you think Malick, if he was a younger man, he would have used the iPhone?
No.
No.
I think every episode, Ryan, we should bring up that TMZ video of Benicio del Toro and Terrence Malick. one of the great videos.
See, that's where he was, and the guy didn't follow him home, so we don't know. We lost
Oh my
Terry that night.
God.
The fact that like Benicio is just like, yeah, I get that you want to shoot me, but do you not understand the gem
This
that
is-
you have right here? This is like finding Hoffa.
And Malick is like
He's like
get me out.
walking-
terrified. Yeah.
He's like shimmying off the camera and the guys, and then like, but Benicio keeps moving back towards him. It's great. It's one of the great videos ever.
then they cut to the TMZ studio where they say he's a big who is Terrence Malick? He's a huge director, like Tree of Life, and the guy's like, I have no idea you're talking about. It sounds stupid. I don't care.
Oh, like the head guy that's always drinking like Diet Coke. Yeah, Harvey, whatever his name is. I would have said like Thin Red Line.
I don't remember what they said. I don't remember it specifically. I'll have to rewatch. That'll be a bonus episode, that clip.
Is his most like known for film Thin Red Line? When we talk about it, when we get there,
I
that
assume
Is that
I don't
or
have
Tree
the
of
box
Life, I
office
would
in front of
assume,
me, but
but-
I would assume Thin Red Line made a lot more money than any other movie he's made,
I got.
Oh yeah, box office wise, yeah.
which I think would kind of make it his legacy, probably. The question is, Dan, our whole question is when Terrence Malick dies, hopefully in
Yeah.
100 years,
Well,
Mhm.
What will
we
it
say this
say?
about every
Terrence
director.
Malick, director of blank, dead at 180.
Oh God, I mean, it's got to be the Tree of Life, the one that won the Palme d'Or. I mean,
You think even on like CNN? I think it's probably
I
the Thin
do
Red
because
Line.
like, look, I mean, Tree of Life, as much as like it is like the art movie to end all art movies, almost like it also got an Oscar nomination for Best Picture. It won the Palme d'Or. It's his most critically acclaimed movie, arguably.
Or
You
maybe it
know,
did,
like
or maybe it didn't get nominated for Best Picture. I don't know. We have an Oscar game that we don't want to spoil, but
Oh, that one I didn't. I knew that one.
damn it!
I knew that
All right.
one.
All right. I do have box office. I do have.
Okay.
aha.
All right. So his top 3 box office are
Song to Song, of course.
number 3 is the New World.
250 million domestic.
Is the New World. New World made
Yeah.
$49 million. People got tricked in thinking that it was Disney's The New World. Probably.
Huh. Interesting.
Tree of Life number
No, it was
2.
because of Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
Tree of Life is number 2. Thin Red Line is that far down the line?
61 $62 million for Tree of Life. And number 1 is
Wow.
the Thin Red Line.
Oh, number 1. Oh, you were going backwards. Sorry.
$98 million.
Yeah. That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah. On a $52 million budget. So it almost made double its budget.
People were almost happy about its performance.
They were almost happy. They were like, Jerry almost got it, baby. But yeah, I mean, he does his own thing. That's the kind of special thing. It's like, no, I think Dan's right. I think Tree of Life will be. I think Tree of Life and
I think
probably
it's Thin Red.
Line.
I think it's Thin Red
It would be
Line.
both. Probably.
It'd probably
but,
be
like,
both because they usually now
Probably.
they put 2 things up there. It ain't
Of
gonna
course,
be.
anytime somebody does, they put 2 things now. That's
No,
been
they-
the big change in the last 10 years.
No, they've been putting a couple things up there. Like,
I haven't really been paying attention to that. I'll take your word for it.
go look up somebody's obituary on Variety, and it's not just like star of this; it's star of this and this. Like, it's gonna. Someone's
That-
gonna. Someone.
That
I'm
defeats
not
the purpose of the
listen,
exercise, Ryan.
Listen.
You're killing
I'm,
the exercise.
I'm not killing the exercise. The man's got 9 films. They don't not putting all 9 up there. No one's saying, Terrence Malick, the director of Song to Song. All right, no one's saying any
that's
of
what
that.
I would say.
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
Just
they
as a
should.
test for the real heads.
Honestly, the movie I would put up there is Days of Heaven.
I was gonna say it should be Days of Heaven. But
I mean, that kind of feels
Is
like
that
very.
your favorite Malick, Dan?
Tree of Life is my favorite
Tree of
Malick,
Life, yeah.
but like by a significant margin, actually. But Days of Heaven is number 2. And
I'm using
I
this
love it a
exercise
lot.
to find out what my favorite is, because I'm not sold on what my favorite really is.
You're not sure if
But
you
then
like
the
Malick
problem
yet.
is, or like,
No, I
which
like Malick.
cut-
I just don't you put that out there in the world, Jay Ledbetter. That's some bullshit
Ryan,
right
trying
there.
to decide if he's a Malick fan or not.
No, I'm
But then
trying
we
to.
have to talk about which cut of the Tree of Life and the New World are we talking about when
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking about what our favorites are.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh shoot,
'cause
that's
they're
right.
very
Am I-
different movies.
That'll be
Jay-
a great combo.
Jay, and we haven't. I mean, we might as well just announce it on the show here. Have we decided? Are we doing extended cut or are we doing regular cut for?
I mean, I don't really know. We could talk about. I'm gonna watch both. So
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yeah, you
watch
got to
both,
do
too.
both.
I'm gonna
I'm gonna rewatch both. I've seen them both, but I'll watch them again.
What do you prefer?
I
Are you an extended guy?
no, I think I'm I'm definitely theatrical Tree of Life. I would say I'm kind of indifferent on the New World, but I'm interested in watching that one again
Yeah.
and seeing if I have a definitive take on that.
I remember when both of those movies went to Criterion and they announced that the extended editions would be on those.
Mhm.
And I gotta tell you, I was elated by the idea of
Yeah,
that because I was
it's
just
crazy.
like, it's like anytime Malick goes to Criterion, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is great.
Yeah.
It makes me so happy. He's one of those filmmakers that I associate with the collection, where I think, that's an important
Because it's the
filmmaker.
only way you're going to see his movie.
No shit.
I own every Malick on physical except A Hidden Life. I'm very bitter that A Hidden Life is not on 4K because that movie is made for 4K.
I have a hidden life.
On Blue.
I'm blue.
Yeah, it's on blue. I don't want to. I'm rejecting the blue.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't make these things. I just went out and bought it.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4K digital. Obviously, that comes with its own problems.
Listen. The digital transfers on especially on streaming services. I got a side note. HBO Max. You gotta do a better job at these. I've been watching movies on HBO Max.
Well, it's just it's the compression, man.
Me and the wife have been watching movies on there, and some of these movies, it's just when it gets to the night sequences, I can't tell what's going on.
Yeah, there's that. For me, the biggest difference is actually sound.
Oh, sound is a big problem. I'm turning this sucker all the way up.
Yeah,
and then I'm
this
flipping out the PlayStation.
Had to turn it all the way up.
Did you?
This movie. This one, yeah. And I was.
Did you watch it on streaming or did you watch it on the disc?
I was watching it on the Criterion Blu-ray. I still had to turn my volume
Well, it isn't
where I usually do.
I mean,
it is an older.
If there's one thing Malick loves, it's a whisper.
Yeah. That is also true.
What are you talking about?
Although this is one of his less whispery.
This is less
films.
whispery. This is more of a louder boy.
He would never be this straightforward in his storytelling again, and for me to call this straightforward is telling you all you need to know about his other movies.
Well, that's the thing about this movie. I think you can watch it that way and find it satisfying, which is probably not true of many of his other movies. But there is so much more to dig into, as we've talked about. So
anything else you guys want to mention real quick before we, I guess, transition out?
I think the moment where they go to the big rich person house and talk to the maid, and they're like, we later found out that she was deaf and she didn't understand anything that we were saying, is one of the funniest things in any Terrence Malick movie. I love that moment. And again, that's also about it's thematically tied to the rest of the movie, where it's about how you present yourself rather than how you actually are. And that is probably the most extreme example of that. But it's all connected. He's a smart filmmaker with no wasted frame.
He's pretty good at his job, wouldn't you say, Jay?
He is very good at his job, and I think many people would say, certainly in some of the later movies, what's the point? What are we doing here with the shot? But for me, everything matters, which is even the small stuff that on the surface seem kind of insignificant are actually transcendentally important, which is the Terrence Malick ethos for me. Is every small moment transcends. He's great. He's the best. He's my favorite guy.
Yeah,
I like him. He's my best friend.
Watching all the insert shots of animals throughout this movie, and then you start thinking about whoa, well, we're just animals too, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah, it's about how we have gone above and beyond the natural order of things, and it's weird that we consider ourselves different than a butterfly.
Right. And then you start thinking about because they're living in this in this little tree house, in this safe space they've made for themselves out in the woods where they can be free, right? But then they're doing this to this Carl Orff Musica Poetica that is literally was composed to teach children how to perform strict meter and on percussion. It's they're living this life of supposed absolute freedom, but you have on the soundtrack this that very strict, the same melody the whole time.
Whimsical.
It is, and yet it's also imposing a rhythm on this supposedly free.
That's good.
Life.
Yeah, that's good. It's something I never thought about. And it's just that's what's going to be so good about talking about Malick is we talked about how important they are sort of individually and how impactful watching these movies by yourself are. But we're going to talk to these people and they're going to mention something that I had never consciously thought about, but subconsciously had sort of recognized. And I'm going to like Terrence Malick's movies even more than I did before, which I didn't think was possible. This is going to be fun, right? I'm going to be annoying. I'm going to be very annoying.
I am here for this.
I mean, I'm not here for Jay saying that Terrence Malick's his best friend. That's
he's my best friend. He's one of my best guys.
That's bullshit.
He's your best friend, and yet you don't know where he is.
No, you don't know. Yeah, you can't find him. You do a fucking show with me every week.
We might pivot this podcast to what was that? Was there a podcast called
Oh,
Finding Richard Simmons? Was
Yes,
that a
Richard.
podcast?
Yes.
Where
We're
in
gonna
the
do that with
world
Malick.
are we going to do?
do
Like,
that
where
with
in the
Malick.
world is Carmen San
You
Diego?
gotta
Where in
do
the
it.
world is Terrence Malick?
Yeah,
Um,
that's our.
He's in
new
an editing
You
podcast.
talk
base
with
somewhere.
everyone who's worked with Terrence Malick. You say, where the fuck is he?
That's the thing about Terrence Malick. He's
Ryan
so
Gosling, where is Terrence Malick?
Kate Blanchett, where is Terrence Malick?
Natalie Portman, please tell me where Terrence Malick.
Brad.
Brad.
Well, you know
You're in
what,
some hot water right now.
Jay.
Help me find Terrence Malick.
Jay? You know who could find Malick for you?
Benicio.
Your buddy Caviezel.
Oh, I love Caviezel. He's my other best friend.
Oh,
Speaking of because we talked about him with Deja Vu and how you
Me
guys
and him
are
have
so
been
close.
knocking on doors recently.
Yeah, you guys have been. Have you guys
spreading
been
the
wearing?
good word of the Lord.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
you got the little ties on there too, buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Do you guys share?
We're going across the nation with bells on.
Do you guys? And speaking of bells, do you share one bike or do you have separate?
No, we go tandem. We look like Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Nice.
Yeah, no, Jay. That is the great thing about doing this is that you're gonna be able to find so many great things that others can't. I mean, like that's the kind of the great thing about art in general. When we talk on these shows, and we always find cool
But
things to talk about,
Especially art this abstract and
this
idiosyncratic.
exactly this open to interpretation, like
Yeah.
you're saying. That is for sure. I'm looking
He's a
forward
cool
to that. Yeah, and I
like the film Badlands, directed by Terrence Malick.
Me too. I also like that there is the one moment we didn't get to mention, but when he's trying to catch the fish and she's kind of narrating that she's, we got on each other's nerves. And he's super angry.
So much.
He's super angry about that and everything. And then he's like, and then she's like, well, we usually got over it. You know what I mean? Like teenagers, honestly. You know what I mean?
There's so many images
Or like
in
kids.
Malick movies that just stand out where they are.
What is a teenager if it's not a kid? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's so many seemingly insignificant images that just stick out in my mind in all of Malick's movies. For me, in this one of them is when he just shoots the football.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that's just an image that really.
Well, that's not shooting American culture. Oh.
And that kind of struck me, especially as I was sort of in the wake of a particular movie that I will not mention, where I was like, "There's not one image I'll remember from this movie." And Ryan, I'm very much
You're an image guy.
visuals are kind of the number one thing that I appreciate in a film in some ways.
You are talking about Fly Me to the Moon, aren't you?
I've not seen Fly Me to the Moon. I'm talking
Well,
about.
I have, and there's not a single memorable image in it.
No, I believe you. And Long Legs, which I think many people would argue is they would disagree with me on that one, but I didn't find that visually engaging in ways that I was hoping I would. But every Terrence Malick movie, because he has just a sense of humanity and spiritualism where he squeezes every ounce of existential importance of seemingly innocuous images. That's probably the thing I appreciate about him as much as anything, is that he can say so much in something that is in a vacuum so insignificant.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Jay?
Yeah.
Before we get out of here.
I'm exhausted.
I know, but I need you to take a 5-hour energy.
And this is like my sixth favorite Malick movie.
Yeah.
So
before we get out of here, Jay, we're going to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed, which is called Badlands. In a segment we like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. I feel like this segment is going to be much more effective in this series, potentially, than in the Tony Scott.
Yeah, certainly that is true. Although it was fun to discover that some
which
of Tony
ones
Scott's
did
movies
and
got
which
some
didn't.
surprise
Yeah.
nods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was fun to surprise you a little bit. The movie Badlands that we're talking about today, 1973. Jay Ledbetter, was this nominated for any Academy Awards?
So this wasn't a big hit at the box office. It at its premiere got pretty rave reviews, although I think when it actually came out to the public, it had a more muted response. I'm going to guess this didn't get any Oscar nominations.
You would be correct. It
Okay.
did not get any Oscar nominations. It got a BAFTA nomination, though, for Promising Newcomer to film roles, leading film roles, and that was for Sissy Spacek. A couple of the San Sebastian International Film Festival gave some prizes to Martin Sheen and Terrence Malick, and this was put in the National Film Preservation Board. It in '93 was up for that, and it won that, but it did not crack the 1946 Academy Awards. The year was
1946.
I'm sorry. The 46th Academy Awards for 1974.
I believe you that it didn't get nominated.
Yeah, it didn't get there, but
awards.
Sorry, I'm tired as well
yet.
too. These are the 74 Oscars celebrating the film of '73. It was the 46th Academy Awards, and the Best Picture winner that year was The Sting. American Graffiti.
This film is better than The Sting.
American Graffiti was nominated. Cries and Whispers, The Exorcist, and A Touch of Class. We talked about this year when we talked about The Exorcist with William Friedkin earlier in the year. So, you think that this movie is better than The Sting?
Yeah, I haven't seen.
I honestly
I haven't seen Cries and Whispers actually, and I haven't seen A Touch of Class.
Oh, well.
But
I
feel like A Touch of Class hasn't really sustained.
I'm going to tell you this: I think it's better than American Graffiti.
I look. I think this is a masterpiece.
Yeah,
so I will probably pick it over many films. I mean, I love The Exorcist, but
I think it says
honestly.
I think it's like American Graffiti is speaking about obviously its time period. I think this is a much more interesting movie to talk about the late 60s, early 70s and the transition of youth and innocence more than like a Lucas. And Lucas's film is very good.
I mean, it's a much more ambitious film than
much more
American Graffiti.
Exactly. That's more literal.
Yeah.
But I do like The Sting.
I love The Sting. It's a great heist movie.
It's a fun movie.
Very, very
it's
fun
fun movie. Would I give it Best Picture? No. Would I give it to The Exorcist? Yeah.
Do you like The Exorcist more or this?
I like The Exorcist more.
That's fine. I don't begrudge you that at at
Yeah, it's
The Exorcist. Very difficult to choose between those two.
The Exorcist, Exorcist was my
So
favorite.
different.
Freaking.
You think they're different?
This and The Exorcist.
Have y'all seen? So Jack Lemmon one. I have never seen Save the Tiger. Y'all seen Save the Tiger?
No. And we're going to have to soon because we're going to do an actor ranking, tier ranking one of these days on the main show.
Save the Tiger.
God. Can we see that anywhere? I don't think I've even...
I'm looking this up.
I think it's been banned.
I don't think I've even seen it available on DVD.
I'm looking for it.
Might have to Jack Sparrow that one.
You can rent it. You can rent it on Apple.
Oh, okay.
And on Amazon Prime. So if you got $3.99, Jay, you can watch Save the Tiger with Jack Lemmon.
That one might be a little down the list. I still got to see Madam Web.
You haven't seen Madam Web?
No, I gotta check that out.
What?
Wow, Jay.
Haven't seen Cries and Whispers. Haven't seen Madam Web.
Same thing. Same experience.
And obviously, Madam Web.
You got to prioritize
Madam
Madam Web. Yeah.
I got to tell you, Madam Web was a lot of fun. I had fun with it. It's bad, but it's a good fun bad.
It is the most 2004 movie you could possibly get in 2024.
Yeah, like Jay, I would say this: order some really good trash pizza. It's on Netflix. Okay. Just have a good time with the wife. Don't expect anything out of it. Just have fun with it. It's a stupid movie. Sometimes we can just enjoy some trash. You know what it is, Jay? And this is an old callback. It's a dumpster whopper.
Oh, I mean that's the old podcast. Yeah, that's.
Oh, God.
Jay, do you want to explain that to?
That's one of my great moments. Yeah, that was of course when we were talking about the film Hellboy,
the remake,
the remake.
Oh,
and I said, maybe you're out. Maybe it's 2 a.m. You've indulged in some adult beverages and you're like, I know I need some food right now. I need some food, but I don't know where I'm going to get the food. And lo and behold, you look down in a dumpster, in a trash can, and there's a fully wrapped cheeseburger. And you're
Whopper.
like, I know I shouldn't have this and I know I shouldn't like it, but you get it. You open it up, you eat it, and in that moment, it is exactly what you need. And you know that it is absolute trash, but it is the trash
That
that will
saves you.
absolutely fulfill your soul in that moment.
Yeah.
And that is
I would
the
not
Hellboy
apply
remake.
that to the Hellboy remake at all, because if not even Mila Jovovich's a half-naked witch can save your movie has way more serious issues.
Well, you know,
But
it worked
it
for
is
some and not for
fully-
others, apparently.
It is fully true of Madam Web. Like, that is a perfect
Description, right?
That's a
Madam
dumpster
Web.
whopper.
Yeah,
That's a dumpster whopper.
Absolutely.
This is again, for anyone out there, this is why I podcast with Jay Ledbetter, because I get soliloquies like that and examples that are just better than anybody else on the planet. And I love
Some
it,
people
Jay.
call me the Terrence Malick of podcasting.
No one says that other than you. I think that's okay. Would
If you
you?
were the
Would you?
Terrence Malick of podcasting, you would only be on one podcast every 3 years.
That's true.
Fair. That's fair.
We'd be busy editing each episode.
Yeah. I would just be tinkering and tinkering and tinkering with.
And then
these
all of a
shows.
sudden I'm not even in the episode.
Yeah, and then it's just me.
all Ryan.
Yeah.
I just want to welcome you all to Director Watch, and then like a shot of a tree. You know
More
what
of
I
a
mean?
creepy whisper than a
Yeah.
So, you know what?
soulful one.
That's pretty rude.
You know what? I would
Yeah.
really love to see Terrence Malick's The Exorcist.
Oh, that would be fascinating.
Oh, that would be great. That's
Yeah.
actually perfect because Mr. Religion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Bergman's Exorcist
The
would be
Dark
pretty good,
Knight
too.
of the Soul.
Can I tell you what I'd nominate this for, Ryan?
A lot.
Pretty much everything.
So-
Picture,
so
director, actor,
actress,
Screenplay.
editing.
Yeah. I love that
Editing,
Martin Sheen still
cinematography.
says that this is the best screenplay he's ever read.
art direction. Hello.
Yeah. You mean art direction / production design? Yeah, sound.
Mm,
How did this
Yeah, the
didn't even get like a
Sound
sound
for
nom?
sure.
got nothing.
I don't know.
I
if
guess
would-
this wouldn't qualify for original score.
would this not
probably.
qualify for that? No,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not Terrence Malick's movies kind of don't in general.
Well, there is original score, and then there's original song score and adapted or scoring. It's like an
An adaptation or scoring adaptation.
Dan. Does that mean like you
What
can
a silly thing this is.
would that have worked?
Oh, like Jesus Christ Superstar got a nomination, even though
Well-
that was a thing that already. That's interesting.
Right, because they adapted the score. I
That's
guess like I
interesting.
don't this wouldn't count for that, I think, because
No.
it's not a score. They just use pre-existing music.
Oh, okay. Well, that's bullshit. Marvin Hamlish won both this year.
There's a 1973
He had a
adaptation of
chokehold
Tom
on
Sawyer.
music in the
Yeah,
70s.
he
Yes, there
won for The
was.
Sting and then The Way We Were. That's actually Oh, he won 3 because then he won
Yeah,
because
'cause
he
for
won for the
songs,
song.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, Tom Sawyer adaptation from the director of Stalag 17. I like that movie.
From Don Taylor, really?
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, he
There
did
you
the
go.
original. He did the original Father of the Bride, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he did.
Best original dramatic score and best scoring original song score. What? No, I'm not getting into this right now. But what the hell? I don't understand that at all.
Don Taylor did Escape from Planet of the Apes and did Omen 2. Okay. All right. This guy's got some interesting films. Maybe he'll be a series down the road.
The
We'll never know.
OG Father of the Bride.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Naked City. It's a good movie.
Enough.
Yeah. Enough. I'm sorry.
J Lo's best moment.
Who do you kick out of actor though? That's a pretty stacked lineup.
Again, never seen the Tiger movie, so
The Tiger.
whatever. Get him out of here.
You're gonna kick Jack Lemmon out?
Get out of here.
Nine times out
Rude.
of 10, Jack Lemmon's pretty goddamn good.
Yeah, he is good, but he'll get his. In my world, he'll get his for sure.
It's a pretty good lineup. Redford for The Sting, Pacino, Serpico,
Mhm.
Nicholson in The Last Detail, which is a great movie,
Yeah.
and then Brando in Last Tango in Paris. Where are we at with Last Tango in Paris?
I haven't
Jay?
seen that movie in a very long time.
Yeah, I haven't
Really?
either.
You haven't. You don't. That's
I
not in
saw
your-
that before.
not
I
in
would
your
have
rotation?
appreciated it. No,
Oh.
not in my rotation.
Mm-mm.
Is it? Oh, you watched it before people started like commentating on it, and it became kind of a little problematic, I guess.
No, I love
Hasn't it always
I
been
love
problematic?
the problematic nature of it. That's my favorite thing about it.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
When are you showing the kid that?
We've already been there. Actually, no, that contradicts what I just said 2 minutes ago. But
all right. Well, would you just
I
give
messed
this
up
best?
the bit.
Yeah, I know you did. It's okay. It's all right, buddy. We all have better days. Dan Bayer, thank you so much for coming on and doing the show. Not as wild as it usually is around here.
It was plenty wild.
Oh, it wasn't? Okay.
Yeah.
I know somebody hasn't been listening to the other episodes. Clearly, we've. Jay, would you say this is
my own experience?
That's fair.
While podcasting, because I know we edit so much out.
Yeah, that's fair.
No, I mean, Ryan, I'm telling you, I'm going to be on my best behavior, which is still most people's worst behavior. But I'm going to be a little more focused than normal.
That's fair. That's fair. Dan, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet? And if you could, Dan, we usually at the end of the episodes we give a recommendation of the week. So can you give give all the listeners out there
just anything you've watched?
Anything that you watch. It does not have to be a new movie from 2024. It can be anything, maybe a rewatch that you are like really excited that you rewatched or something, or a comfort movie or whatever.
Oh. Okay. All right. Well,
I felt like I just shot Dan's dog. Like he looks so distraught there, but it's
no. I was like, wow.
What do I pick now?
Thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But you can find me online on Twitter at Dance and Dan on Film. You can find me on Letterboxd at Dance and Dan. You can find a lot of my writing on AwardsWatch.com and on Next Best Picture. And if I was to make one recommendation on a podcast about Badlands,
it doesn't have to tie in.
No,
I know, but I want it to. Like since I can recommend absolutely everything, I have to impose some sort of limitation.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna say it.
Okay.
I think this movie got a bit of an unfair deal when it came out, and I think that a lot of people just simply didn't see it. And I think it's something that is worthy to be seen and worthy of being discussed. I don't think it's nearly as good as Badlands, but I think that Queen and Slim is a very interesting movie to watch as a follow-up to Badlands. Very interesting flipping of the script in terms of the
Racial dynamic,
protagonist in society and the racial dynamic, and bringing that to the present. I would encourage people to watch that. I think that it became a really topic of the discourse before a lot of people had seen it, and it turned people off. But there's a lot of really interesting things happening in that movie, and two wonderful performances at the center of it.
Great cast in general.
It's got my guy.
Yeah.
It's got
Daniel?
my guy. I'm a Kaluuya stand.
Yeah, love
you
Kaluuya. Want him to do more stuff.
I want him to be in everything. He deserves the freaking world.
Didn't he get involved in like a weird cult or something?
I don't know about any of that.
Flea's in it.
Yeah, he is. Flea makes
Oh
interesting.
God, he is. Yeah. Wow.
I'm hoping the.
I also love Bokeem Woodbine. Love that guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm holding out hope. Maybe Kaluuya can be Bond. I'm thinking that'd be great. If not, a
Maybe
Bond villain would be
good
great.
choice.
That would also be great.
Yeah, he's got this. He's just got that. Man, there's something about it. He's got a presence to him on camera.
He won the Oscar for real menacing.
Yeah, he's really good in that movie. He's really good in Widows too. Yeah.
Oh man, he's great.
He's just good in everything. There's not a
I
bad.
guess he wasn't
Daniel
menacing in his Oscar.
No,
Yeah,
I was
think
actually
he's
thinking. I was
ever
thinking of
bad.
I was thinking of the Widow's performance. as well.
No,
But
but
he's
he's
also pretty menacing as
he's
Fred
pretty-
Hampton.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, he's-
in a different way.
But there's also a tenderness to that. He gets to show. He gets a showcase in that movie for sure.
He's a charismatic guy.
He's a charismatic guy.
He doesn't always have to be. And nope, I would say he's not particularly charismatic on purpose, but he's
No.
still awesome.
He's damn good in that movie.
Yeah.
He's so good. That
That
movie's
movie,
so.
I've come around on that movie.
Yeah,
It's
man, that
kind of
movie
one of the
rules.
best movies of the last
Movie
5
just
years.
rolls.
Yeah.
It's rolled since I've seen it. Oh, if there was a chance to see a movie again on an IMAX, that probably would be it from this decade so far. I never got to see it in the IMAX.
Madam Web?
Oh, well, never mind. Jay,
Her web does connect us all.
there is a scene in Madam Web that, Jay, when you see it, I need to talk to you about. Because it is, I think, a top 5 shot of the year.
Wait, which one?
The bus scene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I gotta watch it. I'll get around to it. It's on Netflix, I think.
It's on Netflix, baby, and you won't regret it.
Yeah.
I want to watch that other Russell Crowe Exorcist movie.
No.
Oh.
He's in his trash era. Good for him.
I mean, I am a big fan of Crow
the
trash.
Crow trash.
I'm the unhinged.
You're the
Crow,
unhinged.
Crow and Trash is a trash whopper.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The
true.
Pope's
That's
Exorcist.
what unhinged is.
Yeah,
I did not like the Pope's
I
Exorcist.
like the Pope's Exorcist. Give me
on.
give me John Wick at the Pope.
I mean, there's the meme of the Vespa, but that's kind of it.
I know it was stupid fun. I had a good time with that. Yeah. Again, it's another one of those. Just get a trash pizza. Go get a Little Caesars hot and ready, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Jay, where can we find you? Movie Rec.
Yeah, Letterboxd, Jay Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. Jay Ledbetter. Any writing I'm doing, find it over at the website awardswatch.com.
Okay.
Movie recommendation of the week. I rewatched The Night of the Hunter.
Oh,
And that movie is unbelievable. Remains
So
unbelievable. One of the best looking movies ever made. Charles Lawton,
one of the best
only
one-offs.
movie ever directed. I've pitched to Ryan doing a 1 month of director watch one and dones, which I think would be very fun. Cover their whole filmography in 1 week.
We could do that sometime.
And there's several directors who I think would be fun ones to do for that. But Night of the Hunter is, I think, one of the great capital G, capital F great films. So go watch that if you haven't seen it. It's amazing, and I think it's amazing even by today's standards. I think it has a propulsiveness and a artistry that can be appreciated by even modern audiences.
I'm so bummed that it's his only movie because I feel like that was just like there's such a understanding.
It's so interesting because he was such a successful actor. You'd think
He
he could have
was.
leveraged that into another movie.
He could, yeah.
Maybe he hated how it was rejected.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
there's just something about it. He had an eye for it. Yeah,
He had one of the great. I that's one of the best looking movies I've ever seen. We're talking about the director whose films I like looking at more than anyone in Malick, but Lawton, The Night of the Hunter rivals that completely.
Yeah.
In a very different way, in a very purposeful, painterly way, right? It has, that is very much an every frame a painting movie, which I love those too. So yeah.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. If you like podcasts, we do the main show, and that releases on Mondays. 5 stars on iTunes and Spotify. While you're over at the website, sign up for the newsletter. It's the best place to get all of our news, reviews, interviews, and of course, these podcasts. Movie rec for me. Time of recording, we're doing a bunch of prep for the year 1999, and I watched this movie this past weekend, and it kind of broke me, and I was crying a lot for about like 5 minutes because I hadn't seen it in a couple of years.
Look, I know American Beauty is painful, Ryan, but that's a little much.
It's because he misses Spacey so much.
Yeah, that's your guy, Jay. Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into that. That's a rabbit hole for another episode. But I watched this movie called Toy Story 2.
Oh,
and
The third best Toy Story movie.
the best Toy Story movie.
I like it a lot. It's
And
really
the best, I'm going to say it, the best Pixar sequel that they've ever made.
Say best Pixar movie.
No, it's not, but it's definitely top 3, top 5 area.
Best original
Ryan, you know
song
what my
in any
favorite
movie.
Pixar sequel is?
I know it's Incredibles 2, and you're just
Incredibles 2.
you're
I
just
love
so wrong
Incredibles 2.
about that.
I love that
Incredibles
movie.
2 rocks. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you,
but it's-
Dan.
Thank you,
Thank
Jay.
you.
It's no
Someone had to say it.
it's no Toy Story 2 though, which I think that there's
Fair.
something like I always loved Toy Story when I was a kid, but something about Toy Story 2 and this is honestly it goes in twofold. One, the idea that Pixar takes their starts expanding their own universe, their beloved universe there. And this is a movie like the first one is about friendship and it's about just like getting along with someone that's different than you and da 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 da. But the idea in Toy Story 2 of that really then starts hitting obviously home even more for our generation in Toy Story 3, and the idea of your childhood starting to be forgotten and the ramifications of what that could be on them, and the whole Jessie introduction is just devastating. The "She Loves Me" sequence was up before. Oh God, don't do it.
That is the
It's
best
up
original
before
song
Up.
in any Pixar movie.
Like I know that everybody
so
talks
good.
about the opening scene of Up, but like that to me is like what Pixar
It's
tapped
more
into way
earned
before.
than the Up scene. I will say
Exactly,
that.
and also the movie's still good after it, as opposed to Up, where that scene happens and then there's
second half of Up is so
it's just nonsensical.
whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just it's got a lot of great callbacks. It's also entirely making fun of itself too, a lot of ways, and making fun of Star Wars and making fun of all these other movies that have come out.
Well, you're just a
around that time.
big.
It's
You tell me all the time how you think Lasseter got screwed. Like you're just very like John Lasseter is a great guy and he got a bad rap.
God damn it! You're just trying to throw me under the bus with Lasseter and Spacey in the same segment. God damn you! No, I just think it's a really really great film, and yeah, that scene crumbled me, and it's 90 minutes and it's just kind of perfect, and I know that Inside Out 2's dominated the box office this year, but it's just like, damn, they used to make really great sequels to their properties, and now they don't, and it's kind of a bummer. So I think it's one of the best films of 1999, and I think it's still one of Pixar's strongest.
Good movie year.
And a very good movie year. And so yeah, Toy Story 2, 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd for Ryan McQuade. Love the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not my
Cool.
favorite. It's not my favorite Pixar film though.
What's your favorite Pixar?
The first Incredibles.
And
And then
I love that rap.
and then number 2 is Remy the Rat, is Ratatouille. And
Brad
it goes
Bird.
back and it goes back and
yeah.
forth because Brad Bird knows how to, and I need to rewatch The Incredibles too. I haven't seen it in a while.
I've seen that movie like 8 times. It's weird how many times I've seen that movie.
I
I
think
think I've seen that movie more than any Pixar movie.
To be fair,
Actually.
Jay, I had massive expectations for that
My
movie.
wife
so,
loves that movie.
So it doesn't I now have to separate those and know what this movie is and probably come back to it.
This is incredible. Hello.
But I do love. I think Brad Bird's the best director that's ever stepped foot at Pixar, and I wish they would let him make more movies.
I want a
Or
new
if he
Brad
wanted
Bird
to make
movie.
more. I want just Brad
Well,
Bird to make
Bird
more
has
movies. He doesn't want to. Yeah, he doesn't want to make them anymore.
Yeah.
No. But he's one of the great storytellers. And
Made a good
visual
Mission
effects.
Impossible movie.
Made easily top 3 Mission Impossible movie. Maybe the second best.
Yeah, it's like Mission Impossible 2, Ghost Protocol, and Mission
No, I think-
Impossible 3, of course.
I think Fallout's the best one, but then
I
put
would
Ghost
no,
Protocol
I
on
like
it. You like Road Nation?
Rogue Nation. Yeah,
Yeah, when they introduced Elsa. Yeah,
I'm just an Elsa. I'm an Elsa boy. I
yeah.
don't know what to tell you.
That's an important person for you, Jay.
That's
For all
she's
of
a-
us,
she's an
really.
I'm
important
sorry,
person.
Ghost Protocol is still the best one.
They're all good.
Oh
They
wow,
all are good, but
yeah,
Ghost
all-
Protocol, there's nothing that tops that bird.
they're all good except
See-
3.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Even though
3
I think
did,
Philip Seymour Hoffman is incredible.
3
in that
is-
movie. Oh
At-
my god, everything
Jay,
else about that movie drives me.
I will say
insane.
this: when I did the rewatches last year, I agree with you. I think it did lessen for me into the worst spot. I think there was something fun about 2, and visually speaking, John Woo just knows how to make a good action film. So
Yeah.
like you can't,
Yeah.
you know, even if that movie's script is gobbledygook, at least like the action sequences are damn well good, and that's what you're supposed to go into a Mission Impossible movie.
Man, with Mission Impossible 3, even in the opening scene, which is so amazing, I'm like, can you just chill out and let me watch Philip Seymour Hoffman for a
Right,
second?
yeah.
Oh my God.
So when are we doing Abrams?
Never, ever.
Okay.
Never, ever. He's made some good movies, but
What are his good movies?
Star Trek's good.
The first Star Trek.
He's
The
one
Force
of those
Awakens?
people who like his real impact is more as a producer than as a director.
Yeah,
Where-
we could do a whole Lost series.
Yeah,
What do we-
Lost is.
Where are we at with as a culture with Super 8?
It's such
Fine.
a pastiche that it bothers me.
Yeah.
Good.
I remember-
Hey,
I remember liking
introduced
it at
us
the
to Elle
time.
Fanning, and for that, it's good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Those-
Tony Scott was in on Elle Fanning before J.J. Abrams.
Bit true.
That's
She was
true.
in
But-
she was in one shot of Deja Vu.
One shot.
A visionary and always ahead of the scope. Tony Scott, Terrence Malick.
And I mean Sofia Coppola, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she was the real one.
Yeah. We will be back next week. We will be talking
We're a very
about-
Elle Fanning heavy pod.
Yeah, we really are. She's probably like number one on our letterbox outside of
Watch
Denzel
the
Washington.
great. If you're not Elle Fanning pilled, you will be.
Why did they cancel that show?
Because no
'Cause
one
we-
watched it.
Nobody watches anything
That's
on
a good
Hulu.
reason. That's a good reason to cancel the show, honestly.
Nobody watches anything on Hulu unless it's The Bear.
Yeah, unless it's an FX show. Yeah.
Jay, have you watched The Bear season
Shogun.
3?
I am halfway through The Bear season 3.
I wasn't a big fan.
I think I have a theory on sort of the trajectory of The Bear. Season 1 was a very good, more straightforward season. Season 2 was immaculate, I think, because it still had the power of the straightforward storytelling, but also was playing with the form in ways that were so adventurous. And then I think so far season 3 has been overwhelmed by the desire to play with the form at the expense of the storytelling.
Yeah. And that's where I think the problem is. It's like
Yeah, I agree with you so far.
yeah.
I like every episode individually, but looking at the whole set of them as a season, it doesn't.
It's
work.
kind of a tedious exercise. I wish
yeah.
it feels like a first half of a season.
Yes,
but even like when Mad Men used to do that, like that, there was a finality to those halves.
Yeah.
And you know, in
there's
other shows as well.
even if you take it as like act 3 of a 4-act play, because they've said the next season, the 4th season, is their last.
Did they?
Act 3, Act 3 usually ends with the climax, and then Act 4 is the denouement, and this ends before the climax.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I haven't finished it. I mean,
What
I'm
are
still
we
like,
doing here?
give me all the Bear you can give me still. I think a lot of people are confusing not as good as the other 2 seasons with bad.
No, I don't think it's bad. I just
still think it's good,
I think it's
but
just
not.
well, I think
as
that
good.
there's the articles about like, oh, it's actually been a shit show from the beginning. It's
Yeah,
just
that-
like,
that's
you just
stuff
want
is
your clicks,
inevitable.
asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, get out of here. No, it's when you had 2 really great seasons of television, and then you have one that's probably where you told your creator, hey, maybe dial it back a little bit. You know what I mean? Like maybe
Almost every great show has a lesser
season. Yeah. Well, that's not true. Because Mad Men every season's great in my opinion. So
Mad Men every
Leftovers.
season is good. No,
Leftovers-
first season of
Leftovers
Leftovers is
perfect.
significantly worse than the other 2.
no.
oh, I love them all though, Jay. I love them all. It's a perfect show.
I think that is a movie that gets way.
I'll tell you a
better
show right
in
now
its
that's got 3
later
really
seasons.
strong
And I love
seasons.
The Leftovers.
There's a show right now that's got 3 great seasons. GREAT, great seasons, and that's Hacks. And that's a show that has
Haven't watched it.
that goes into the 4th season, and that leaves you on a cliffhanger in the 3rd season.
Yes.
And
yes.
understands we're
Perfect.
ending this story here,
Yes.
and we're moving this story into the 4th season. And
And they understand how to up the ante, going into the
yeah.
4th season, and it's still a fucking comedy.
well, that part,
I'm sorry,
mean-
the season 3 of The Bear, the comedy is very much a supporting character. Literally.
It even
Literally, there
even
are
my
comic relief characters. And
even
that's
my
the comedy.
favorite show of all time, probably Twin Peaks,
Tweaks.
has 10 episodes where I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of got to get through those. You kind of
Season 2?
Yeah,
Season
the
2,
episodes like
After they revealed
12
the
to
murder. Yeah.
20 of season 2.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be back next week. We'll be talking about Days of Heaven. And so thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.